An R-rated fantasy novel, a brutal tale set in the Vladan Empire. The protagonist is abandoned by his mother and grows up forgotten in the imperial palace. He felt an inferiority complex towards his attractive younger brother and eventually entered into a political marriage. The main character he married reminds him of his mother, which makes him feel both love and hate for her. Well, then it goes into dark romance. According to the title, knowing the plot, the girl decided to read the reviews. Reading the reviews, she realized that the third volume was the most intense, but after calls not to read it, she became even more curious. Having started writing loudly, she exclaimed in horror at what she saw, surprising the people around her. No matter how much she skimmed through the novel, it never ended, and there was a surprising amount of violence, which is probably why it was rated R. Be that as it may, she decided to finish reading it at home, since she couldn't read it in public, but while crossing the road, a truck drove towards her. They said that before death, the best memories flash before your eyes, but at that moment, only one thought came to her mind. "Please," she begged, "let no one see her phone," and the next moment she jumped up screaming, as if recovering from a nightmare. And while the girl was trying to understand why she was still alive, someone asked her if she had fallen asleep somewhere again and told her to go pick mushrooms. While the woman was grumbling at the girl, she tried to understand who it was and what was going on, and then, stunned, asked if she was her mother. The woman asked her why she spoke as if she had never seen her before. The girl began to ask who and where she was, and the woman asked with displeasure if she was awake yet. She explained that it was the back mountain of their village of Quezon, a small mountain village on the outskirts of the great Vladan Empire. The girl shuddered. Could this really be the same Vladan from the cruel story of Emperor Vladan, she thought? What luck! How could she possibly end up in this brutal, dark, R-rated romance? But a week later, she understood the situation she found herself in, and now, spending time with her mother at lunch, she thanked her for the food. Mom smiled happily back at her daughter and said that if she wanted more, she could just let her know there was a lot of stew. Now called Lucette, her father passed away early due to illness, and she lives with her mother in the most remote mountain village of Quezon. The lord here is a commoner who rose to his position because he was a gifted composer, which meant it was a great place to live a carefree life, she thought happily as she ate her lunch. In the imperial palace where the novel takes place, they can kill each other. But this has nothing to do with her, a commoner living in a dilapidated house with her beautiful mother. Now they were discussing the delicious stew, and when Lucette praised its taste, and her mother laughingly said that it was like that because she made it. The girl really liked this warm food and loving family, the ideal life she always wanted. Today, some village men came to them to fix their old problematic roof. Chelsea's friend Dahlia came to visit her with her son and brought apples, and Chelsea was surprised because her friend had recently come with potatoes. Chelsea didn't even know if she could continue to take it, and Dahlia happily replied that they were just helping each other. Lucette had long since figured out that Aunt Dahlia would now chatter incessantly, and this would last for a long time, so she decided to slip away now. Whether she hit the jackpot or what, she was afraid in vain that this should be a dark story because it was very calm here. Suddenly she heard someone's pleas to return her glasses nearby. A group of hooligans were bullying a boy. The boy with freckles said that if he asked him politely, he would consider giving the glasses back. "What are they doing there?" the girl asked herself out loud, raising her head, peering into the crowd. They were literally bullying him. The boy asked to give it back, and the bully mockingly asked why he was preventing them from playing by reading a book here. The boy reached for his glasses. He suddenly tripped over the stones lying on the shore and fell into the river. After this, the gang of hooligans laughed at him and they asked him if he had gone too deep since he loved the water so much. Of course, the lost glasses have nothing to do with it. The hooligan asked his friends what to do with the glasses. He could crush them with his feet. But they were not allowed to do this when Lucetta came to the rescue, kicking the bully in the ass and calling him an idiot. "That's how it was, they attacked one," she said, wiping sweat from her forehead, and then turned to the boy and asked if he was okay. She extended her hand to the boy, coming closer and saying that he was now safe, asked him to take her hand. The boy looked at his savior in surprise as she asked if he could hear her. Lucette herself was also able to examine the boy and noticed beautiful eyes on his face that looked like precious stones. Then a bully called out to the girl and asked why she was suddenly barging in and causing trouble, saying that girls shouldn't interfere. Lucette, getting irritated, asked screaming why they were making fun of someone who had done nothing wrong. "Nothing bad," the boy asked again and pointed his finger at the object of mockery, telling him to look at his blood-red eyes. "So what?" asked the girl, and as soon as the boy heard these words, his eyes filled with hope and surprise. The bully called Lucette an idiot and asked if she didn't know that red was the color of the damned. "What kind of childishness is this?" the girl asked discontentedly, crossing her arms over her chest and explaining that it was an old superstition. Her mother told her that in an empire that was often at war, red, like blood, was a bad color. "But it's not his fault that his eyes are red," Lucy asked. "What about her hair then? Because it's also red." Frowning, she asked the bully if they wanted to make fun of her too because of her ominous color. She said she should tell her mother that the hair color she inherited from her dead father was considered ominous. The boy, horrified, said that he didn't mean it, and Lucette asked what he meant when he said he didn't mean it. She sat down on her knees, pretending to be offended, as if crying, and asked what she should do, since Vincent said that her hair was cursed. The boys almost burst into tears, realizing the guilt of their words in front of the girl, and Vincent, throwing his glasses on the ground, ran away with everyone. Having picked up the glasses, Lucette, smiling, called the boys impudent rascals, and then handed the glasses to the boy. The boy with blood-red eyes thanked the girl and reached for his glasses when Lucy noticed that his hands were shaking. Thinking that he had sweetness, Lucette pulled him out of the river and worriedly told him that he would catch a cold. She said that she would take him home so that he wouldn't worry and asked where he lived. The boy was a little embarrassed by such concern. After some time, they approached the boy's house, and Lucette, looking around, asked if this house would always be here. The boy led her into the house, and as soon as Lucetta entered, she was struck by the fact that his house looked like a secret library. There were many books here which he often read, as well as many papers which he supplemented over time himself. The girl, delighted by this, said that it was amazing and asked if she could look around some more. The boy said that there was nothing much to see here, but the girl continued to beg, saying that everything here was very interesting. Struck by such interest in this, the boy allowed the girl to do it if she really wanted to. Lucy thanked him. It was strange for the boy, after all. There shouldn't have been any visitors in this place. It was against the rules of etiquette to let a guest in without any preparation and allow him to explore the house. But for some reason, it seemed to him that for this girl, in general, he could make an exception, he thought, looking at her. Then Lucette asked if he shouldn't change his clothes, if he was really standing there so that she could find him something to change into. The boy, blushing and embarrassed, answered the guest that it was not that, it was just rude to leave a guest alone. "And that's all?" laughing asked Lucette. Calling him a polite child, said that she was fine, so he should go and change. The boy replied that he would be back soon and asked her to wait for him a little. Lucy agreed and thought how cute he was. She decided to take a closer look and was even more surprised by how many books he had read, thinking that he was probably very smart. He looked a little awkward, but very kind. Perhaps he was withdrawn because he was so immersed in his studies. There was a word that described such people. She thought about it and soon remembered that he was definitely a botanist. Lucette thought she should ask him more questions when he returned, when suddenly her gaze fell on the green jar. She thought he was drinking it, but soon she caught a terrible smell, as if it was something rotten, and almost dropped it from her hands. The girl put the stinking jar on the table and guiltily asked herself if she was really that hungry, since it wasn't food. Just then a boy appeared behind her with a gloomy expression on his face, asking what she was doing. Lucette cringed, afraid that he was angry because she touched his things without permission. The next moment, the girl covered herself with her hands and, closing her eyes, began to apologize and somehow justify herself to him. The boy didn't understand why she was apologizing, so he tilted his head to the side and asked her about it, saying that he had brought her cookies. After trying it, she realized that she had never tasted such cookies in her life. Could such a sweet treat for guests be so delicious? Continuing to enjoy herself, she thanked the boy and said that she liked them very much, which made him happy. Then Lucette asked if he was new to the city, and when he moved in, the boy replied that he had moved in 4 days ago. The girl knew it. No wonder he looked unfamiliar. The boy asked to take care of him from now on. But Lucetta was really shocked by his appearance. "This place was just an empty lot a few days ago," she said, and he shuddered. "Is it true?" he asked uncertainly, nervously folding his hands into a lock and saying that when he arrived it was already here. But then Lucy asked if all the books were his, and having received a positive answer, she enthusiastically said that it was impressive. Many of the books here looked complicated, and the boy said that they were on philosophy, and in response to the girl's question, he said that he liked philosophy. He began to talk about how he had recently started reading, using complex words and speaking as if he had always prepared for it. This guy was focused solely on his own interests, had a huge amount of knowledge, and was just a true nerd. After listening to his story about the knowledge he had acquired, the girl smiled and the boy, noticing this, apologized for talking too much. As he started coughing very hard around him, Lucy jumped up and asked if he was okay, why he started coughing. Maybe he had been in the water too long. But then he took out that bad-smelling medicine and drank it, saying that it would help him. Lucetta was worried about his health. She asked what kind of medicine it was, and the boy replied that it was simply the only medicine that helped him. Lucy wondered what kind of illness required such a strong medicine, and whether it would be impudent to start asking him about the illness. After thinking, she said that she needed to go home for a while, and without answering the boy's question whether she had already left, she went out. Left alone with himself and not having time to stop the girl, he worriedly wondered if he had made a mistake and what was wrong. Was it because he was talking about things that only he knew, or because he coughed and took medicine during a meal? Everything is wrong, or maybe she realized that this place is strange? The boy's thoughts suddenly flashed through his head. His Highness, before leaving for the village, was asked to remember that no one there should know who he was. They cast a mind control spell on the inhabitants. For his protection, there should be no exceptions to the rule. No one should know. But it was all strange because he had red eyes. They pointed fingers at him, treated him coldly, abandoned him, and betrayed him. And it seemed that he had already gotten used to everything and let go of the situation. But for some reason, he felt very sad and lonely. Suddenly, with a sharp gust, the door to the room swung open and Lucette entered, apologizing for having to leave home for a short while. She brought a mushroom stew that her mother had prepared and said that taking medicine on an empty stomach was harmful. She served him a taramak with stew and told him to eat it while it was still warm. The boy thanked her and realized why she had left in such a hurry. Lucetta apologized and explained that she wanted to bring it to him quickly and asked if her mother's stew was really tasty. The boy agreed that it was very tasty. As she said here, she still doesn't know his name, so she asked what his name was. She introduced herself first, that her name was Lucette, or Lucy for short, and the boy, blushing slightly, said that his name was Levan, and she could call him Lev. After that, they became friends, and Leo's house became their shared secret hideout where they spent time together. So, while playing with Lucette, Levan solved the Rubik's Cube and the girl said how amazing it was. She asked if he wasn't a real genius. The boy denied it and said sheepishly that he was far from a genius, and Lucy asked if he was saying that about himself. Then, what about her? She didn't know much, so she asked if it was difficult for him to play with her, and Lev replied that it was not he who played with her, but she with him. He explained that she comes to see him, spends time with him, communicates with him, and all this makes him happy. But he also confessed to the girl that all this was new to him, and he was so happy that he wanted it to be like this forever. Smiling, Lucetta said that it was not that difficult to arrange, and, holding each other's little fingers, offered to promise that everything would remain that way. That now Lucette and Levan will be friends forever. They swore this, and Lev said that he would remember this promise. Suddenly there was a knock at the door and Chelsea walked into the house, telling her little brat that she knew she was here. As soon as Lucy's mother entered, Leo bowed and greeted Madame, and the woman asked the boy how he was doing. She asked if Lucy had brought nothing again, and he had told her to always take gifts when she went to visit. Chelsea asked if he must be having a hard time with their troublemaker, but the boy denied it, saying he was having fun. Then the boy began to speak in complex words again, which left the woman stunned, but then Lucy interrupted him. She hugged Leo's hand and told her mother that they were friends and would always play together, and asked how she could give gifts every time. It was already getting dark, so the girl and her mother went home, saying goodbye to the boy until tomorrow. As she said goodbye, Luchette patted her friend on the head and, smiling broadly, asked him not to miss her. Left alone, Levon touched a strand of his hair and, blushing, thought about what he should do. Every day it was harder for him to say goodbye. He wanted to be with her a little longer. Mom asked Lucy if she had become very close to this boy lately, and the girl replied that she felt comfortable and had fun with Leo. Then the woman asked if she would go to the festival with him this year. "A festival?" the girl asked again, and her mother reminded her that she had said she wanted to go to a quiz show. The festival is an event where you enjoy different activities with your partner. The quiz was held for ages 13 and 17. The girl wondered why a quiz, maybe because the main prize was a tour of the capital. Curiosity about the capital is quite natural when you live in a remote mountain village, but she is not interested in it. What if, while she was there, she was caught up in the events of the novel's plot, she had finally found peace and didn't want to take any risks? But for second place, there was a prize of 2.5 million gold. With that kind of money, you wouldn't have to worry about anything. She thought that if the night went with Leo, they would be able to take second place, and that's what happened in her thoughts. On her way to her friend, she thought she would bribe him with her mother's stew so that he would not be able to refuse, but then she noticed the light from Lev's house. Raven, the imperial magician, arrived and wounded the prince but asked His Highness not to plan because of such a small wound. From above, he saw what His Highness was thinking and asked him to stop cultivating his rebellious thoughts. He said that he just needed to stay there as quietly as if he were dead and hoped that his advice would be useful, that it would heal his wound. Thanks to magic, the wound began to heal, and the boy calmly asked if this was all he wanted to say. To confirm this, the magician said goodbye. He was about to use movement magic, but then Lucy's voice was heard from behind the door, asking Lev if he was in the house. "Already got a girlfriend?" asked Raven, and reaching for the door handle said that he was interested in seeing who the picky prince allowed to be around. Noticing this, Levon squeezed the magician's hand and rudely said that it was none of his business, ordered him to leave and not make him repeat it. Raven smiled and said that he would carry out this order, but as he left he asked to remember that the emperor was not as patient as he was. Making a small village like this disappear was nothing to him. Levon looked worriedly at the locked door. Gathering his courage, he left the room to Lucy and apologized, asking how long she had been waiting for him. He thought she was in a bad mood because he made her wait for a long time. The girl did not answer, looking at his shirt sleeve. Levon was already starting to worry that she had heard their dialogue with Raven, but then Lucy grabbed him by the elbow and worriedly asked what was wrong with his clothes and if he was injured. Seeing that there were no wounds, she exhaled. Leo realized that Lucy had not heard their divorce and asked if she was worried that he was hurt. Of course she was worried. She thought that his sleeve was soaked with blood and asked what he was doing to get so dirty. Leo apologized, but Lucy told him to just not hurt himself. She brought the stew that her mother had made and suggested that they eat it together. During the meal, the girl asked him what he had been doing in his room recently, and the boy answered curtly that he had simply been studying various things. He thought it was fun to be around Lucy, so it would definitely be dangerous for her to know too much. Levin wanted to ask her something and asked if she could avoid going up to the second floor in the future. Lucy smiled and said that if he wanted, she would not go, but she had a reciprocal request to pay attention to the sound of knocking. The boy guiltily said that he would keep an eye on this, and the girl suggested that he open the door until the 10th knock, and Lev promised this. This made Lucetta happy, and she said that she had one more request and asked if he would like to go with her to the quiz at the festival. She said that a partner was needed to participate, and she thought it would be great to go with him, passing on the paper. Embarrassed and blushing a little, Leo told Lucy that he thought he was not suitable for this quiz. But Lucy was sure that with his level, the three would definitely take the prize place, and asked if he was worried that they would not take first place. The girl said that he shouldn't force himself, and if he doesn't want to go, he can just say no. She said that she could ask David, and this made Lev wary. He didn't even like the thought of seeing someone else next to Lucy. So he said with a happy smile that he would go with her and prepare more diligently. The girl thanked Leo and said that he did not have to prepare diligently, suggesting that he do his best. Wearing a yellow dress and hat, Luchette headed towards Leo's house, thinking that she had been waiting for this day for a long time. An unusually beautifully dressed Leo came out to greet her, greeting Lucy and asking if they were coming. It was the first time she had seen Lev so dressed up, and she wondered if he too was looking forward to this festival. Adjusting his sleeves, Lev asked if he looked strange, but Lucy replied that it was not so. He looked great. "But isn't it too hot today for such clothes?" she asked, and said that everything was fine because he had something to change into. When she opened the closet, the girl was amazed that all his clothes were checkered and looked too warm for this weather. After much choosing, Levon finally changed his clothes and went out and asked how she liked his outfit, and Lucy said that it suited him very well. She asked how it could be so perfect, and Leo leaned over her and said that he was glad to wear what she liked. Luchette looked at him in surprise, and her cheeks flushed. If anyone heard this, they might misunderstand. Changing the subject, Lucy told Lev that his hair was disheveled, and while fixing it, she thought that he seriously shouldn't do that just anywhere. The girl immediately noticed that his glasses had no lenses and wondered what he needed them for, when a carriage drove up to the house and Lev called her. Having already left the house for the carriage, Lucy gave the boy the hat that her mother had made, and Lev put it on. Then David ran up to his friends, calling Lucy, and asked if they had decided to come to the festival together. The boy said that he would go with her, but saying that nothing could be done, he introduced himself and asked Lev what his name was. The boy said his name was Levan. The boy asked again, saying that Lucy named him Lev, but he insisted on the name Levan. David asked Levan to let him know that if Lucy bothered him, he could teach him how to play football and show him some great places. But Levan replied that this would not happen, and David, irritated, shouted at them to do whatever they wanted, saying that they both irritated him. After that, the guys got into the boat, and Lucy wondered why Lev was so cold with David, and didn't even allow him to call him by his short name. She wondered if he was still shy around strangers, when Lev opened his suitcase and asked if she wanted cookies. He took them because he remembered that she liked them very much, and yet, Lucy thought, Leo probably just needed some time. On the way, the little girl's eyes began to close and she began to nod off. Then Lev asked if she could take a nap if she was tired. "Can I?" she asked, closing her eyes and saying that she would just take a little nap and lay down on the boy's shoulder. Leo told Lucy that if she wanted him to be friends with David, he would do so and take part in the quiz if she asked. But this name, he wanted only her to call him by this name, because the name belongs to the person who pronounces it. This name will be only for her. In the capital of the Vladan Empire, in the imperial palace, Daniel Abel Hadas, the only heir to the emperor, ran to the magician. He said that his brother Algernon had disappeared and asked what he should do, since even his mother was not telling him anything, while the magician was putting tea on the table. He asked Raven to do something about it, and the man bowed and asked His Highness what he wanted him to do. The boy, almost crying, asked to be taken to his brother Raven, throwing up his hands, asked if there was a reason why the first prince was hiding. Daniel didn't know about this and simply ordered to take him to his brother, and Raven bowed his head and said that he didn't know if the first prince would be happy. But the young prince assured him that his brother would definitely be glad to see him. His brother definitely missed him. In response, the magician grinned and asked, "Even so?" He said that he would take him to the first prince and, casting a mantle on Daniel, told him never to take off this cloak. This magical tool will return him to the palace in case his life is in danger. The boy was surprised and frowned. He asked why he might need this to meet his brother. Raven explained that it was a precaution, wanting to have a good time. He was enveloped in magic, but Daniel was anxiously asking where they were going if necessary and asking to stop. But Raven did not interrupt the spell and, having moved the boy, sipped his tea, hoping that he would not be punished for this. The festival was very fun. Leo knocked down all the targets with darts, spinning the roulette, and took first place and very quickly found the treasure. Lucy told Leo that thanks to him, she now has a lot of presents. She bought books and ate ice cream, and it's great. But then she asked if he was sure he wanted to give her all these prizes. She felt a little awkward taking everything for herself. But the young man smiled sweetly at his girlfriend and said that she, of course, could take everything, because it was enough for him to see how happy she was. The girl was embarrassed by these words and raised an eyebrow in surprise, thinking that he was again saying things that could be misunderstood. But thinking that she was making it up, she handed Leo the snow globe, and the boy said anxiously that this was what she wanted most of all, and Lucetta explained that this made her want to give it to him even more, hoping that he would always be able to look at it and remember this day. The shared memories with Lucy warmed the soul of the young prince, and, accepting the ball, he said that he would keep it to always remember this day. Registration for the quiz began, and Lev argued about which place Lucy was counting on, to which the girl replied that it was the second one. Levon asked her why second, since she could have been aiming for first place. The girl laughed. She said that first place is great, but it can be expensive. She likes second place and it will suit her perfectly. The prince was amazed that she could be completely satisfied with second place. He always thought that at all costs, one must be first. But now he thought that it was okay if everything wasn't perfect, as long as he was happy, and Lucy said that she wasn't interested in the first place prize. As it turned out, Lev wasn't interested in a tour of the capital either, but then the girl noticed a store that her mother asked her to go into. She told Lev that she had forgotten about her mother's errand, and saying that she would return soon, asked him to wait for her here. The young man did not mind. Standing near the reception desk, Levon was wondering when Lucy would return, when suddenly he heard a familiar voice nearby. He was horrified to recognize the boy as his younger brother, Daniel, who was clearly looking for him, telling passers-by his characteristic personality traits. Daniel told passers-by that his brother was tall and therefore noticeable, and asked them to tell him where he was and not to lie. Thinking why he was here, looking for him, Levon approached Daniel and, putting his hand on his shoulder with a gloomy look, asked what brought him here. The boy's face immediately came to life when he saw his brother and asked how he was doing, and Levon led him aside. Daniel said that he missed him since he disappeared and asked Revan for help because he really wanted to see him. Saying that he missed him very much, the boy hugged his brother, calling him Algernon. Algernon Levinas Hadas, the prince's true name. A prince born of imperial descent, but kept locked away because of his commoner origins. A name he could barely renounce, Leo said he still did not regard him as a member of the lower class. And the brother, smiling, replied that he, of course, regardless of the imperial rules, would prefer exactly this. Putting his hands on his brother's shoulders, Levon told him to do whatever he wanted. No one would dare to scold him anyway. But as if he was threatening to know that when he broke these rules he would be punished instead, Daniel asked what that meant. And Lev asked him not to pretend that he didn't know why he was here, saying that if they found out that he was here, he would have to leave again. While tying a bow on his robe, he asked where he would go next, and if it would be a real hell. His brother jerked away. But Algernon said that he did not blame him, even though he was forced to come here. He liked it here very much, and it was better here than in the palace. Daniel had no idea what he was talking about and suggested that they return to the palace together, saying that he would beg his father. But Levon called this nonsense and asked if he wanted to be punished by telling the younger one to go back. Surrendering, Daniel asked if all this was unexpected today and said that he would visit him next time, as needed. Clenching his fists in anger, Levon asked his brother if he understood him and ordered him not to come, saying that he did not want to see him anymore. He claimed that there would be no next time, and this was already a warning. The boy was frightened, trembled, and cowered at the sight of his brother. When their conversation was interrupted by Lucetta, who called out to the lion, saying that she had looked everywhere for him, the brothers shuddered. They both looked at the girl who was asking what he was doing here, reminding him that the quiz was about to start. Levon kindly said that he was helping a lost child and, turning to his brother, sternly ordered him to move on. The boy thanked her and ran away. Lucy told him to take care of himself, and Leo apologized for leaving without telling her. Daniel realized that his brother had changed, but he didn't understand why the cloak had suddenly activated, or if his brother had seen it as a threat. Lucy encouraged Lev when he was upset to learn that the quiz had most likely already started, since they had had their chance. They finally arrived, and the girl suggested hurrying up, but suddenly Lev went in a different direction from the right building. Lucetta said that where he was going was the venue for the Mr. and Mrs. Redante competition. Lev turned around in surprise. It turned out that they misunderstood each other a little, being in the mood for different competitions. Lucy laughed at how embarrassed he looked and asked if that was why he had dressed like that earlier. Levon thought he had to dress up as much as possible, but Lucetta had no idea he had such a sweet side. Having decided to hurry, the guys quickly ran into the right building, and Lucy asked if it had started. The woman asked if they were participants in the quiz. The nodding girl confirmed this and, apologizing for being late, asked if they could join again. The girl thoughtfully said that usually this is prohibited, but because there are few participants they can join. The condition was that the first 3 answers would be marked as incorrect, but this, on the contrary, made Lucy happy and told Lev that it was wonderful. During the break, they went into the quiz room and sat down. Taking off their hats, there really weren't many participants. Following the participants, Lucy saw the Lord, who looked somewhat bored, and thought that she could stand this atmosphere. Covering her mouth with her hand, she turned to Levan and told him to worry if he didn't know the answer, because she had studied hard. But the next moment she froze, seeing the determination in her friend's bloody eyes. As the game continued, Lev answered 10 questions in a row correctly, delighting the girl. Lucy hadn't prepared for this, but it was amazing. All the questions were difficult, and she was once again convinced that he really knew a lot. She was again amazed by this and wondered how Lev knew all this, but then the girl said that she would read the last question. Long ago, His Majesty, the former emperor, destroyed all the sorcerers who were hindering the empire. At that time, the sorcerers quickly gave up. But there was one who resisted until the very end. He had great strength and a strong spirit. His Majesty the Emperor recognized his strength and spirit by erecting a monument and asked what the name of that sorcerer was. Levan frowned. The children discussed how they had not heard of this story, and Lucy asked her companion if he knew the answer, and Leo replied that he did. But he also said that if they answered correctly, they would take first place, so they would not answer correctly. Intrigued by this, Lucy asked to tell the answer only to her and, agreeing to tell the correct answer, Lev named Raven. He said the name in unison with the girl giving the answer. The man assumed that it was too difficult a question for them. The Lord raised his head and asked his assistant if those children hadn't said the answer, but he replied that he hadn't heard it from here. Lost in thought, the Count realized that those children had answered almost all the questions correctly and asked his assistant to make sure. He asked Johann to take a closer look at those children and learn more about them, reasoning that they might be useful. They were presented with the award, and Lucy happily thanked Leo, who congratulated her and asked what she would do with the money. Lost in thought, the girl asked, how about buying some clothes for her mother? She always said that everything was fine and fixed the old ones. It always bothered her, and she was sure that she also wanted to wear cute clothes. Levin suggested that they go together and buy a gift for her mother, and if she didn't have enough money, she could use him too. Lucy asked what he was talking about, since they had agreed to split the prize money. And Lev replied that her mother always takes care of him, and he also wanted to repay her by taking advantage of this opportunity. Lucetta agreed, saying that since she was embarrassed to accept the money, in exchange she would grant him 3 wishes. She felt like she was the only one getting everything, and smiling she said that she also wanted to help him. Lev agreed, but thought that she was the only one who suffered losses, since he had already received more than enough from her. She is always so warm and friendly. No matter how many times he feels it again, it will not be enough, if only it lasted forever. The boys came to the clothes store, and Lucy looked at everything in surprise, admiringly saying that shopping is always fun. She collected so many clothes, putting the porter's duties on her friend, so much so that he could hardly hear her under the heap of clothes. The girl apologized guiltily and, looking at his condition and fatigue, suggested that he rest, and Lev decided to sit down nearby. Lucette was surprised at herself that she was so upset because she hadn't gone shopping for a long time. Suddenly, her attention was drawn to a very beautiful necklace on the counter, and she wondered how much something like that could cost. She never dared to find out the price of the necklace, deciding to forget it and go buy clothes. But Leo noticed that she liked it. Already in the carriage, Lev admitted that for the first time he took part in competitions, played a quiz, and went shopping. Lucy was surprised that this was all a first for him and asked if they would go to the next festival together. But after thinking about this proposal, the guy said that he would not be able to participate in the quiz because he would already be 18. But Lucy, patting her friend on the back, said that she didn't mean just the quiz, although it would be great to win more money. And of course it was so, because only thanks to him, she bought many gifts and was very pleased. She told Levin that she wanted to go again just because she really enjoyed spending time with him. Lev smiled. A blush appeared on his cheeks, and he asked if he could now use one of the wishes she had promised him. Taking the box out of his luggage, he said that he noticed that she had not bought anything for herself and bought it because he thought it would suit her. Levin asked if she would accept it, and Lucy froze in shock. It was the same necklace that she had noticed then. She said that it was probably very expensive and wanted to ask how he bought it, but Lev said that he really wanted to give it to her. As Levin put the necklace on her neck, the girl thought about how long he had been watching her, that he had noticed that she had not bought anything for herself. He smiled and said that everything was ready and it looked very good on her, thanking her for accepting his gift. The girl looked at the decoration on her chest and thought how he could be so attentive, and waving her hands in admiration, she ordered him to come up with another wish, because she had the feeling that he was fulfilling hers again. The boy thought for a moment and, confused, asked how about asking her to pat his head. Stroking his head, Lucy said that something else was needed, because she could do this at any time, but a real desire was needed. Having already returned home, Luchette asked herself if her mother had returned yet, because she already wanted to show her the gifts. But remembering the last question of the quiz, she thought about what she had already seen and heard about this before. Out of nowhere, a voice came from behind the door, calling her, asking if she had received the prize money from the quiz. The male voice said that he had forgotten to get her signature before handing out the prize and asked if she could open the door. Approaching the door and reaching her hand towards the lock, the girl thought hard, hoping that this would not become a problem. But suddenly, she stopped, pulling her hand away and remembering that she had not indicated the address on the registration form. It could have been someone dubious. The girl loudly apologized and told the stranger that she was very tired and asked if he could come tomorrow, but there was no answer. After a while, the dubious man said that he would return tomorrow, and the girl listened, making sure that he was really leaving. Taking a couple of steps back, Raven looked back at the girl's house with a grin and said that she was quick on the uptake and this could become interesting. In the morning, her mother found out what had happened in the evening and irritably asked who could have dared to attack her daughter. Clenching her fist, Chelsea said she would teach him a lesson when she got the chance, and Lucy said she was fine. She told her mom to open the presents better because she and Lev had chosen them carefully, and Chelsea said that it was thoughtful of her. But suddenly the woman noticed her daughter's neck and asked Lucy what kind of necklace it was, and the girl told her everything. Chelsea saw that it certainly looked expensive and wondered if it wasn't a bit much to exchange such large gifts. But in any case, she now asked her daughter to make sure that she closed the door properly because from tomorrow on she would be very busy. The girl asked what she would be doing, and her mother smiled and replied that she and Dahlia were going to open a store in Radanta. After her mother opened the store and the season changed, there were changes in their daily life. The days were hectic for Lucetta, yet she felt relieved when she saw that her mother looked happy. Chelsea seemed more energetic now that she had opened the store, but the workday was over. David asked Lucy why she was so exhausted, and the girl frowned and replied that he had no idea how much work she had to do in the store. Firstly, the shop opened by Dahlia and her mother was doing very well, and secondly, David began to learn the blacksmith's craft. He proudly boasted about the figurine he had made, but Lucy only laughed when she saw it, and then the boy sheepishly asked her not to laugh at him. He worked on it all day, and it only worked out that way because he was a beginner, and he would get better in the future. Mom and David were immersed in work, and she was a little jealous. At first she only wanted to eat and play, but now she became worried. So she found a purpose for herself and decided to figure out what she wanted to do with her life. At a meeting with Levin, he offered his frozen friend hot cocoa, and Lucy accepted it with pleasure. At this point, Lev asked the girl if she had finished reading the introductory math book he had given her. Almost spitting out all her cocoa in surprise, Luchette looked away and said that she had read it. After that day, she talked to Levin about her experiences, and he suggested that they study together. Putting a stack of books in front of the girl, he said that any journey into learning begins with theory, so he decided to start with mathematics. Lucy didn't get along with mathematics and asked her friend to stop and suggested that he study another subject today. It became physical education. Lev laughingly told Lucy that her emotions were strikingly different from those when she was doing math. The girl happily threw a snowball at him, apologized, and admitted that she honestly could not get into mathematics. Then she asked if maybe she should become an expert at playing snowballs, and Lev said that it was a good idea, but the girl asked him not to approve of everything. Lying in the snow and laughing, Levin said he meant he just wanted her to do something that made her happy. Lucy wanted this too, and asked Leo to let her know if he found something he wanted to do. She asked him if he knew that he had one more wish left, and after thinking about it, the boy asked if he could treat her to dinner that evening. Already at home, the girl watched her friend and thought about the fact that Lev had suddenly started cooking. What an unexpected event this was. She wondered if he had always enjoyed cooking, or if this was something new he wanted to try. She noticed the cookbooks lying on the table and couldn't believe it, but then Leo called out to Lucy. The girl's eyes widened in amazement, and Levin, smiling, presented the girl with a cake and congratulated her on her birthday. The girl asked in surprise if he had prepared it because it was her birthday today, and the boy confirmed it. She had mentioned it earlier, and since it was a special day, he wanted to fill it with the things she liked. Lucy threw herself into his arms. Hugging the boy tightly, she thanked him shyly and joyfully, saying that she had never felt so happy. Lev replied that he had noticed that she had been worried a lot lately and was now glad if this had helped her. Continuing to hug Leo, she thought why he was so kind, and she would definitely find a way to repay him. After the celebration, the girl fell asleep, and Leo thought with relief that Lucy was feeling a little better. He was worried and cooked in a hurry. He was saying that next time he would prepare everything more carefully, when suddenly he heard footsteps and looked up at the stairwell. He wondered who it could be. Raven wasn't due to arrive today. Maybe it was Daniel again, despite all the warnings. But suddenly a woman appeared in front of him, and he asked, stunned, what had brought Her Majesty the Empress here. The woman told Algernon that he had grown a lot since they last saw each other, and the boy asked if this was true. She replied that it was so, and asked him with concern whether he was experiencing any discomfort and whether he needed anything. But the young man bowed and replied that he felt comfortable thanks to the decision taken by the imperial court. But he still didn't understand why she suddenly came. He thought that he would never see her again. If the Empress herself came to see him, then she was probably still worried about the problem of succession to the throne. Burning him with a cold gaze, she said that he must be very surprised, but she sympathized with him too. Leo reminded himself not to create situations in which he was vulnerable, and replied that the decisions of the imperial court always had their reasons. She asked Algernon if he felt any particular pain or danger, and Lev, without even raising his head, denied it. Saying that she understood everything, the woman turned around and said that since she was convinced of his well-being, it was time for her to leave. The guy, amazed by this, raised his head and worriedly asked if she needed anything else from him, wondering if she would leave so easily. As she went upstairs, the woman also added that she told him not to forget to take his medicine on time, and after that she got it. Levon found it hard to believe that she had only come to see how he was, as if locking him up in a remote village wasn't enough. It was also necessary to frequently observe him. Like an animal in a zoo, it was very unpleasant that he was constantly being spied on and interfered with. He came to Lucy and said that he was happy as long as he could be with her, but he could not stand anything that interfered with this. He needed to prepare for the guest's arrival and a plan to protect Lucy. He wouldn't let anything put Lucy in danger, he thought. In the morning, Leo asked Lucy if she was okay, because she had seemed worried lately. He asked if she was in pain, but the girl answered that she was fine. He wondered if she had eaten too quickly yesterday. It seemed she had indigestion. She said that maybe what she ate yesterday didn't do her any good, and asked if he had any digestive medicine. The boy sadly apologized, saying that he had nothing in stock, but then Lucy assured him that it was not his fault. Luchette suggested that they go to the pharmacy together and buy some medicine, but then Lev froze in thought. They came to a house that was almost falling apart, and Lucetta, seeing this, thought in horror that it couldn't be that they had such a bad pharmacy in their village. The grandmother seller kindly asked her if she had indigestion and advised water with honey, but Lucy refused, saying that everything was fine. She lamented in horror that their village didn't even have a normal pharmacy, and Lev said that there was a good pharmacist in the village behind the mountain. He sadly apologized to Lucy that the whole problem was his cooking, but she replied that the food was very tasty. She suggested that she had fallen asleep too quickly the previous night and said that a walk would relieve her digestive problems. She fell silent and thought about the fact that this world was truly ancient, and she had no idea that finding a cure would be so difficult. Lev takes medicine, but it is very unusual, and I thought that it is probably very difficult to make. Then it dawned on her, smiling. She thought about studying medicine since pharmacology is not developed here, then there might be a demand. This could have been as useful to Leo as when he asked Lucy if something good had happened. She seemed happy to him. Turning to her friend, the girl happily told Lev that she had thought about what he would like to do when she was interrupted by a scream. The man asked if they were the ones who won the Rodante quiz during the summer festival, and Lucy cautiously confirmed it. The stranger happily said that he was glad to meet the two of them again and introduced himself as Johann, Lord Rodante's assistant. Placing his hands on the children's shoulders, he asked if they could spare a little time to come with him. Lucy pulled his hand away from her and asked where he was going, saying that if it was about the prize, they couldn't get it back. About the prize, the man asked in surprise and, smiling, explained to the boys that the whole point was that the Lord wanted to see them. Riding in the boat, Lucy asked Johann why the Lord was suddenly looking for them, and the man happily replied that they would find out when they were there. The girl thought that all this happened because of the situation at the festival, when Lev quietly said the name of the forgotten magician. Johann told the children that there was no need to be so wary, and besides, they were almost there at Rodante Castle. Levin kept looking out the window at his reflection and wondering if it was possible that the Lord had revealed his identity, but it seemed impossible. He would not have been able to recognize him outside the imperial palace, and then, trying to calm down, he realized that he had forgotten his medicine. Lucy noticed the anxiety and unhealthy look on Leo's face and asked if something was wrong. The boy said that he was seasick, that he might have been a little nervous about meeting the Lord, and Lucy asked if he was sure he wasn't feeling unwell. Reassuring his friend, he replied that nothing like that had happened and asked her not to worry, but he anxiously hoped that nothing would happen. They arrived at the Lord's palace and he introduced himself to the children, saying that he was pleased to meet them in person. He asked to let go of the formalities, seeing Lucetta's attempts, and smilingly suggested that the children drink tea with snacks and chat. They were surprised by this. Lucy thought that the warm tea, desserts, and all this looked like he was trying to be hospitable. She was wondering what exactly he wanted to talk about and why he had brought them straight from the outskirts, when the Lord finished his conversation with the servant. He turned to Lev and Lucetta, asking if they had answered the last question of the quiz, and the girl shuddered. Placing her hand on Leo's hand, Lucy said that she had seen something like that in a book, but she wasn't sure about her knowledge, so she didn't write it down. He said that few people know about this magician. Those who are interested are divided into two types, either nobles or those interested in science. So Lord asked if they were interested in science, and the children nodded in surprise. I asked if they were planning to move to the capital when they grew up, and the children shook their heads. The adults were pleased to hear this. The Lord grabbed Lucy's hands and said enthusiastically that they had finally found valuable talents for their native Rodante. He asked if there was anything specific they would like to explore further, and asked them to tell him so they could support them. Lucy asked, dumbfounded, what he meant, and the assistant, wiping away tears, said that they had been looking for talent for the village for a long time. He explained that everyone preferred to go to the capital and they could not find anyone else they could train. But now, pointing to the children, he said enthusiastically that it was like that until they met the two of them, so talented at the quiz. The Lord said that they really wanted to find them, that they would get everything they needed, be it teachers or books. Here, Lucy took advantage of the moment to say that she had recently noticed that there was no normal pharmacy in Rodanta. In order to get better, it is better to take medication, so she said that she would like to study pharmacology. This day was unusually long and many unexpected things happened. Even the subject that Lev wanted to study was unusual. He wanted to study magical engineering and martial arts, which would be good to learn if possible. Lucette felt extremely motivated and suggested that she and her friend try together, and he agreed to do their best together. Levin said that he would return first and asked if she could find her way back herself, and the girl confirmed this. When Lev left, Lucy noticed that he looked lethargic, and she asked him if he was okay, and if she should take him back. The house was not far away. Lucette was very excited. She saw how red his ears were, and realizing how unwell he was, she followed him. She knocked on the boy's door, calling Lev and asking him to open the door. He did not open it, although he promised to open it until the 10th knock. Apologizing, she opened the door herself and noticed how quiet it was inside, when suddenly she heard a cough from the second floor. She immediately ran upstairs and, opening the door to the room, saw the boy, all red, lying on the floor and asking him to wake up. Levan could not see anything, could not move, and only trembled heavily and breathed just as heavily, realizing that he was now being punished. He heard footsteps behind him, and turning around he wondered who it was. Knights have heavy steps, maids have a light gait, David has a soft step. Leo listened to the approaching steps and thought that the Emperor was not looking for him, and Raven did not make any sounds. There was only one person in the palace who walked so carefully, and that person was his mother. She told His Highness that while she was here, his commoner origins would undoubtedly be a burden. As a mother, she was unable to protect her son and asked how she could be the cause of even more trouble. Trying to pull his hands out of the shackles, Leo asked what she meant by trouble. He didn't want it to be like that. It was time to leave, and the boy screamed and asked his mother not to leave him alone in this empty palace. He was cold and scared here. He asked, simply begged to take him away, but the woman, turning to her son, only sympathetically wished him to be happy. In his delirium, he called for his mother, and the girl, touching his forehead, realized that he had a very high temperature and his body was shaking. It was all bad. Luchette thought she needed to call someone for help and stood up, but then Lev grabbed her hand. The boy, breathing heavily, asked her not to leave. He asked her not to leave him here alone, and Lucy thought that he had woken up. But when there was no answer, she, holding his hand, said that there was no need to be afraid, that she would not leave him, and asked him not to worry. She needed something to bring down her fever when she suddenly noticed a bottle of medicine lying nearby. She was delighted, because it was this that Lev always took with him, and she thought that she would give it to him, but she was upset, realizing that it was too viscous. She couldn't just force him to drink it properly, while Leo was mumbling to her not to leave. After thinking for a while, she asked Leo if he believed her, thinking that she could not leave everything as it was. After drinking the medicine, she touched her lips to the boy's lips to help him take the medicine, mentally apologizing to him. She couldn't let him stay like this, but as soon as she pulled away, she realized that the temperature had dropped a little. Luchette wondered what this wonderful medicine was that worked so quickly. Maybe it had sedative ingredients. Suddenly, she couldn't see clearly. She needed to stay here until Leo woke up, but then she fell next to him. Not long after, Levan woke up with a headache and asked himself why he was there. He noticed Lucy nearby. He didn't remember taking any medication, but the bitter taste in his mouth meant otherwise. He lifted up his friend who had given him the medicine earlier, but then he noticed a drop near Lucy's mouth and stopped. He remembered Raven's words that this medicine was developed only for the Crown Prince's illness. This medicine could easily become poison for others. Remembering this, Levan was overcome with horror, and cold sweat ran down his body. He wrapped his arm around the girl's body and asked Lucy to wake up, shouting and begging her to open her eyes. Meanwhile, in the Imperial Palace, there was discussion about the Count increasing his troops in an attempt to counter the Western factions. The Emperor did not like this, saying it made it seem as if he was trying to quietly expand his territory. While drinking a glass of wine, he irritably ordered Raven to deal with this. Any threat to the throne had to be nipped in the bud. He asked Diana, his wife, if she agreed that there was nothing more ridiculous than a man who did not know his place. The Emperor, not having heard an answer, said that he had not heard the report from the last reconnaissance, and Revan asked what he wanted to know. And the man, looking at his wife with a grin, said that he was only interested in one thing: were there any unpleasant threats to his throne. Algernon Levan Hadassah was born into a royal family but exiled to a remote village for his commoner origins. And the name of this forgotten prince, no one knows why Algernon had to leave the imperial palace. Because he was the illegitimate son of a concubine, or because he was unusually smart like his mother. One thing was clear: after Algernon's birth, the magician made a prophecy, which the emperor took seriously. The empress told her husband that his majesty could rest easy, saying that Algernon was quite content with life there. Raven confirmed that her majesty the empress was right. The boy really liked it in that village. He made friends there and seemed to settle in well. The emperor said that as long as he did not harbor dangerous thoughts, he did not care about his life. The empress knew that the emperor would stop at nothing to maintain his power. But it was not he who wielded real power, but Raven. who stood behind him, and whoever dared to encroach on the throne would be killed, according to their ideal. She couldn't let this happen. Daniel was small, but the emperor's opinion could change at any moment. Therefore, the empress thought that she had to save this place for her child. At this time, Levon kept trying to wake up Lucy, but she did not wake up, and the boy began to blame himself for this. He thought he should have warned her that it was a dangerous potion, and was very worried that something terrible would happen because of it. But then the girl opened her eyes and, rising from the floor, sleepily said that she didn't even understand how she fell asleep. The young man shuddered in horror. Rubbing her eyes, she said that she was glad that he had woken up, apologizing for going up to the second floor without permission. The boy looked at her in shock, not believing his eyes, when Lucy said that she was worried and that's why she followed him. She saw that he was unconscious and gave him medicine, but it did not flow properly and tasted bitter. Lev asked how she knew, and Lucy apologized guiltily and admitted that she tried it because the situation was urgent. The next moment, Levon threw himself into Lucetta's arms and said that he had been very worried and was glad to see that she was okay. His body shook as he hugged her and said that he thought something terrible had happened to her and was afraid that she would never wake up. Hugging Lucy back, she said soothingly that the medicine contained a sedative, so when she drank it, she suddenly fell asleep. She asked him how he managed to drink something so bitter and viscous and told him to lift his nose, because otherwise she too became sad. At that moment when Leo thought he had lost her, he felt unbearable fear and loneliness. Deciding not to put her in danger again and never let her go again, he stopped crying. Johann never thought he would be nervous before his first lesson and said that they had invited an outstanding person. He asked her to study diligently, and the girl happily replied that she was very excited to meet him and would try her best. She will finally be able to study pharmacology and will also use this chance to learn more about Leo's medicine. She was wondering what she should ask first, because she wanted to know so much, when suddenly the door opened. Lucy happily stood up, greeted him, and asked him to take care of her, but she spoke more and more quietly, seeing the woman's gloomy figure. This strict lady was her pharmacology teacher and, adjusting her monocle, suggested that the lesson begin. The teacher told me to start with the first chapter of the textbook and asked me not to be shy and ask questions if I had any. Lucetta was a little surprised because she had already read the book at home, but she thought that there was no need to rush. And immediately she had a question about plant mold toxins. She knew several types and asked to explain the difference between them. The saddest thing about self-study was that the books only covered the basic concepts. But now she had a teacher and she could ask any questions, but the woman said she didn't need to know. She explained that she could still cure them all with one antidote and suggested moving on to practice. However, Lucetta was wary of this approach to teaching. She wondered if it was normal that the explanation was too vague. They studied the process of leaf maturation, during which the color changes and the smell becomes stronger. After creating the medicine, Lucy said enthusiastically that the color was clear and the smell was strong and thought it was very well made. Having said that she could now create an antidote and that they would end the lesson, the woman closed the book. It was a shame. She had a lot of questions, and it seemed like the lesson was superficial and she thought she just didn't like her. Just then, Johann entered the room and asked if her first lesson had gone well and if she had a minute. He modestly wanted to ask her about something and, saying that it was about Levon, he said that Lev was angry with him. Wiping tears from his eyes, the assistant said that they were unable to assign Levon a teacher and he felt uneasy about it. So he went to check on him and Levon said he didn't expect anything, so he could just leave him and go. Lucy found it hard to believe that Lev had said that. Johann had whined and said that it was his fault that he was making him wait so long. The girl said that he knew that he cared about him, and besides, the Leo she knew was not so harsh. On her way home, Lucy was thinking about why Lev had to be rude to his assistant, since he was not one of those who did not understand others. When David caught up with her, he happily asked Lucy if she was going home and suggested going together. Lucy asked if everything was okay in the forge, and the boy, pointing to his battle scar, happily replied that he would soon become the best blacksmith. "How their little David has grown," she said mockingly, with the feeling as if only yesterday he had been crying into Aunt Dahlia's skirt. The boy asked her to be quieter and asked when he ever did such a thing. The guys laughed and Levon watched. Soon he called out to Lucy, and the girl, noticing Leo, laughed and asked if he had been waiting for her, quickly saying goodbye to her old friend. Lev asked what she had talked about with David, and the girl replied that they were making up for lost time, since he had recently started working in the forge. Then, Luchette said that she heard that he still didn't have a teacher and asked if it was hard to study alone. But it wasn't particularly difficult for him because he had done it before, and he had enough scientific books. Then the girl said that the assistant was worried about him and felt uneasy that they couldn't assign him a teacher. Levin replied that he didn't need to worry about him and was afraid that it would only add to his workload. Lucy sighed. Thinking that she and her assistant had had a misunderstanding, she asked if they should invite David next time. After a pause and emotion, Lev asked why this was, and Lucy said that David was an old friend of hers, just like him. She thought it would be great if they got along. He was not the same timid boy he used to be. Swallowing, Lev asked Lucy if she liked David, and the girl said that although he was not yet mature, he was still a good friend. Then he asked what she thought about him, and then Lucy asked why he was asking, and said that he was also her valuable friend. It had just started to rain outside, and the drops were hitting the glass hard when Leo asked which of them was more special. With a clap of thunder, Levon asked the eerie question of whether if one of them disappeared, the one who remained would feel more special. Lucy asked what he was suddenly talking about, and the guy said that it was just that no one could ever know what would happen to people. He asked her to think of it as a joke and to answer how she would feel, and Lucy sadly said that she didn't want to think about it at all. Lev asked, most likely the one who would stay with her until the very end would be special, wouldn't it? But then Lucetta dreamily and peacefully answered that, on the contrary, the one who disappeared would become special. Lev asked why. The past could not be returned, and memories tended to become idealized. So when you miss someone who's gone, wouldn't the one who's gone feel more valuable? She asked. Lucy said that she still didn't want anyone to disappear, because then they wouldn't be there for her, and she didn't want to think about it anymore. Leo apologized for the pointless question, and Lucy smiled and said that he was absolutely unique and asked him not to go anywhere. To which Levon smiled and nodded, saying that she had nothing to worry about and thought that for Lucy he was the most special. When Leo walked her out in the rain, he said that he couldn't let her walk alone in such weather. After this, Luchette happily thanked Leo, saying that thanks to him she arrived safely. Then David came up to them and said with displeasure that she was taking a very long time, reporting that the roof of her house had broken again. Taking the girl by the hand, he said that her mother told him to bring her because she had to spend the night with them. Levin didn't like this action, and he suddenly grabbed Lucy by her free hand. She asked what happened, said that it hurt. Leo didn't like it when she was close to other people and wanted to be her only friend, monopolizing everything connected with her. But then David sneezed and almost shouted and asked what they were doing, and they would continue to stand in the rain. And although he didn't want to let her get close to others, he let go of Lucy's hand and apologized for holding her up, telling her to go quickly. Having said goodbye to Lucy and looking at the fleeing boys, he pursed his lips and thought about how he could keep her close to him. As soon as they entered, the rain began to pour harder, and while drying herself, Lucy noticed the new books in his house. David explained that they were sent by his brother, who was returning home, and sent these history books in advance because of their weight. About history, Lucetta asked, surprised and interested. Was his brother really studying to be a historian? David said that he always talks about it until his ears fall off, except for stories about sorcerers. Everything else is not interesting. For example, he said that the cleavers are unique creatures. They cannot be killed by either a sword or a weapon. That they use powerful magic, but cannot enter a house without permission, and they take people's souls in exchange for their magic. Intrigued, Luchette asked her friend if there were any more interesting stories, such as about the last sorcerer. The girl looked too cute and came too close, embarrassing David, and he stuttered that he had heard only a little bit. He didn't know the most important thing. David said offendedly that if she was so curious, she could ask her friend about it. Lucy asked in surprise why he spoke so coldly about someone he knew. David said that he didn't even consider him a friend. He asked if she had noticed how he ignored him when she was with him, but Lucy frowned and said that Leo was not like that. Lucy thought it was just like with assistant Johann. For some reason, misunderstandings kept happening. Throwing down his umbrella, Lev went home, saying under his breath that he didn't want to let her go, but couldn't hold on to her. He was the only one who could be with Lucy. He was the only one who should be with her, said the boy, left alone and soaking wet. Their lesson today was about analgesics, and while reading the textbook, the teacher asked her to read more additional information at home. Lucetta was annoyed that a week had passed since the beginning of the classes, and each time everything was the same, as if the teacher had no intention of teaching her. At this point, the girl raised her hand to the teacher and said that she wanted to know why the side effects were occurring. But the woman replied that even if she didn't know this, it wouldn't affect her business, ordering that crying children be given candy. Unable to contain herself, Lucy abruptly told the teacher that she was studying pharmacology not only to earn money, but that she was genuinely curious. She wanted to know, so she asked questions. So she asked that if she knew the answer, please tell her in detail. The woman asked if she really wanted to become a pharmacist, and Lucy sincerely made it clear that she really wanted to learn how to treat people. The teacher finally understood the girl's motivation and said that she did not understand why she chose such a difficult path. She said that a long time ago she was asked to cure a skin disease of a noblewoman, and she managed to do it in a month. What the specialized pharmacist could not cope with, but the price of healing the disease was horrific. Pointing a finger and beating her, calling her a witch, the woman explained that pharmacists were despised then and now. Looking at the wounds on her hand, she said that people thought that treatment with drugs was just nasty magic, and Lucy shuddered. The teacher asked her if she wanted to be unfairly accused of being a witch. She just wanted to protect her. She didn't think she would say it so soon, and if she realized what she was talking about, she might not come to class anymore. Now Lucy understood the reason for the cold treatment she received and what this scar and attitude were. But then Lucy asked if she still wanted to attend classes. The teacher was surprised and asked if she understood what she meant. Lucy understood, but still wanted to study pharmacology. She told that her close friend suffers from a rare disease. She wanted to cure his illness, and she said because she knows that pharmacology is not dangerous. She suggested not to give up the opportunity to save someone's life, and it reminded the teacher of the time when she first started working. The woman warned that she was a rather strict teacher, so she should be prepared for what awaited her ahead. But Lucy was only happy about it and smilingly replied that this was what she wanted and was looking forward to studying with her, the teacher. After class, Johann ran into the room and asked if the class had gone well. She had been very energetic today. Lucy happily reported that real classes had now begun, and she felt that she had become very close to the teacher. The assistant was pleased to hear this and looked forward to her future successes. Lucy said that she would do her best. But he asked not to feel obligated, saying that most people doubt pharmacology. It would be enough if she didn't give up halfway, and Lucy asked the assistant if people were wary of her because of magic. The man confirmed that people think that pharmacology is the legacy of sorcerers, but neither the Lord nor he believes it. They believe that it was important to cultivate talents, and not long ago, a plague broke out in a neighboring country, causing many deaths. It was a reminder of the importance of pharmacology, so he asked Lucetta to try to be prepared for anything. It had been a hectic day. The number of books to read had increased exponentially, but she didn't know whether she should be happy or sad. Lucy thought about it. The prejudice against magic here seemed quite strong. The people here really had a strong aversion to magic, even though they knew that all the magicians had disappeared. She thought happily that what was important now was that there were no magicians left. She lived in a time that was in no way connected to the main story. Falling into bed, Lucette said that all that was left was to live in comfort and not worry about unnecessary things. Raven, who was watching her, said that there had been some misunderstanding and he wondered if he should leave her alone for now. It was very cold, but even on this day I had to work and deliver letters on my father's errands. Walking down the street, the boy asked what kind of letters could come to such a run-down village like theirs. The next envelope looked expensive, and after reading the address, Vincent realized that it came from the house of Count Menelik. The guy was very surprised why a nobleman would send a letter to their village, and besides, the recipient was Lucy. A villager receives letters from a noble family. Does this mean that Lucy is from a count's family? Not believing all this, Vincent opened the envelope to see what was written there, but the letter was empty, and this angered him. Throwing away the empty envelope, he said boredly, "If Lucy were a noblewoman, she would not live in this village." For that letter, Raven raised and said what a scoundrel he was, since he threw away the letter without delivering it to the addressee. Burning the letter, he said that it was good luck for him, for now it was better to let her enjoy the peace and the truth would come out sooner or later. While walking, Lucy said that it would be better for her to stay with him, and Lev said that her mother would worry. Puffing out her cheeks, Lucette said she wondered where the wind was suddenly blowing from, saying she had been pushing herself too hard lately. Lev suggested telling her mother not to worry, and on dark days like today, he would bring her. Lucy said he talked as if he only walked her home on dark days, but in reality, he always walked her home. Last time it rained, and on sunny days the wind blew, and sometimes he said that he spends it because he likes the scent of flowers. And the only time he left first was when he fell ill. Lev asked in surprise, was it true? Then he crossed their hands in a lock and squeezed them, apologizing to Lucy, admitting that in fact these were excuses. The truth was that he wanted to stay with her a little longer because he didn't want to leave her. Smiling, Lucette happily told her friend that they could be together forever and noted that Lev was surprisingly clingy. Clenching her hands together, Lucy said she was afraid he would pass out again on the way back. But the lion answered her that lately he had been leading a healthy lifestyle and would not overexert himself in vain. Smiling brightly, Lucy happily said that she believed him and said that if something happened, he should tell her too, and Lev promised this. The girl said that she would walk the rest of the way on her own, when Levan stopped her and took out a gift and asked if she would accept it. He did it himself, so it was a bit awkward, and asked to open it when she was alone, hoping that she would like it. Returning to her room, the girl opened the box with interest and found a pendant in it. She asked if Leo had learned the art of jewelry when she suddenly heard the thing calling her by name. She asked Lev if it was his voice, and the guy replied that it was him, wondering if he could be heard well. Levin said he did it because he wanted to talk to her a little more and asked if it was too childish. But Lucy happily replied that she was also glad to hear his voice. It was great, and she also had something for him. She asked to check under the table. Lev found a box there. Lucy said that she was planning to arrange a surprise, but he got ahead of her. The boy's eyes lit up, and Lucy said that she had made this using the knowledge of the classes. These medicines should also be useful. He asked when she had time, and she replied that she had done them little by little, analyzing what she had learned, and asked to read the note. It contained instructions on what they were for and how to use them correctly, and Lev thanked Lucy. He felt as if he had received a gift better than he had given, and suddenly wondered what his medicine was originally for. Raven only mentioned that it was developed for his illness, but he had not yet told anyone what exactly he was sick with. His head suddenly started to hurt, and the boy became silent. This worried Lucy, and she asked what happened. Leo, going to the medicine, asked not to worry. With trembling hands, he drank the medicine, but did not understand what it was. As soon as he thought about the medicine, and a strong pain pierced his head. Lucetta worriedly asked why he suddenly went silent. He hadn't lost consciousness and shouted for Lev to answer her. The next day, in Redante Castle, Lucy was sitting with her books and thinking about how Lev was doing. Last night, when he finally answered and apologized, Lucy kept asking what was wrong and whether she should say hello to him. But the boy only said guiltily that he was simply lost in thought, tripped, and ended up falling. The girl called him a fool. She was very worried and thought that he had lost consciousness again, that his heart had stopped. Leo had always been a bit clumsy, but she was becoming increasingly uneasy about leaving him alone. She decided to make an ointment next time too. The more first aid supplies, the better. He said he was fine, so there was no need to worry. Lev was no longer a child, she continued writing, when she heard the ringing of swords. Going out onto the balcony out of interest, Lucy saw that Levin was currently in a fencing lesson with the teacher. She was glad that he would finally have a suitable mentor and assumed that the assistant had had a hard time. She asked if he would be okay. He wasn't in the best condition today, and the girl hoped that he wasn't overexerting himself. When they met, the boy replied that he was not overexerting himself and thanked his friend for her concern, saying that he was fine. It was a relief to Lucy, who had thought he might have overdone it in his first lesson with his mentor. She said she saw him sparring from there, and he looked great, and he seemed so experienced already. Levan thanked Lucy for the compliment, but said that this man was not his fencing mentor. He asked to be allowed to introduce himself to her, one of the Lord's personal knights. And the man, smiling, introduced himself as Franz. He said that the Lord told him about the talents of the two of them, and he heard that someone wanted to learn how to use a sword, so he came. His skills were impressive, and he asked not to be modest and asked if he had never held a sword in his hands. His stance said something else. But then Johann interrupted him, calling Sir Franz. He said that the Lord was looking for him, and the knight said that he would come to him now. The assistant apologized to the children and said that he needed to take the knight away from them for a while. Lucy said that they did not mind. When saying goodbye, Franz suggested that Levin conduct a proper sparring session next time and wished him luck in the next meeting. As Franz was leaving, he asked Johann what the point was of teaching the children of nobles, and the assistant asked the knight what he meant. He was talking about Levin. It seemed that he had already received high-level sword training. The other asked what he was talking about. Levin was an orphan who had never touched a sword, but Franz said that couldn't be true, and they exchanged a few blows. But he was sure that the child would receive imperial sword training. He was definitely not an ordinary child. After a while, Lucy asked her friend if he had studied fencing before, and Lev replied that it had been a long time ago and only the basics. Lucy said enthusiastically that he still thought he had a talent for fencing. Levin agreed, and, gaining confidence, said that next time he would meet him and ask him to teach him some more. This knight, seeing that the girl was blocking his sword, deliberately put more force into it, causing him to panic. And in the end, he used the imperial technique in response, so he hoped not to encounter him again. Lucy exclaimed, and Leo asked what happened. The girl said that her hair was tangled. Things got a little confusing here, and Lev asked her to turn around, saying that he would help, and Lucy thanked him. She said he was so dismissive of his own needs, even yesterday when he talked to her. Looking away, Levin said that it was an accident, and he was very ashamed of it, so he asked her to forget about it. He couldn't tell the truth. The royal family was watching his every move through the mages and didn't want to involve her in this. She could be in danger because of him, but she said that even though he says he's okay, she's honestly worried about him. Smiling, she asked him that if something happened to him, to let her share this burden with him. Leo agreed. He told Lucy that she might not realize it, but he already relies on her a lot. She has been his ray of light since the first day they met. Luchette laughingly asked Lev to stop, saying that he was making her blush and she didn't know how to respond to that. Levin explained that he just wanted to tell her how much peace she brought him, and Lucy smiled. He wondered if the day would come when he could tell her the truth. That day could not come. He wanted to always protect her smile. After that, time flew by and spring came, and since then she had been living in the village of Kazan for almost a year. A lot had happened, and she thought she had adapted well. This was the life she had always wanted. Then a boy who looked familiar called out to Lucy and said that she had grown a lot since the last time he saw her. Running up, she smiled and said that she couldn't believe that they hadn't seen each other for so long, and asked Devon how he was doing. The guy asked why she took so long to answer. Had she really forgotten? He heard from David that she had started attending classes. Luchette happily said that everything was so and she was just returning from there. Devon asked how it was, whether she was coping. Lucy admitted that it was actually getting harder, and it wasn't like that at first. The guy laughingly said that studying is always like that. He only told her not to stick her nose in the books and not to forget to go out and have fun. Lucy asked if he had graduated yet, but Devon said he hadn't graduated. His professor was on vacation, and she understood that he would be in the village for some time. Suddenly remembering everything about Devon, she asked if he could tell in more detail the story he told David. The story was about a prince who was treated poorly because of his status as an illegitimate child. As a result, he entered into a political marriage and had a difficult relationship with his wife. As a result of constant misunderstandings, he killed everyone he loved. A very tragic story of cruelty and sadness, Lucy said. She thought it was obvious, but Devon asked in surprise if she had grown up enough to be interested in such dark stories. He said that first of all, members of the royal family cannot harm each other. It is an ancient oath that even the emperor could not break. But the magicians disappeared long ago, Lucy said, and the guy said that's why she's called ancient. The guy asked the girl why she was suddenly interested in such stories. Maybe she was also interested in history. It's weird. She thought the story of the novel was already over, but does it really not exist at all? What a turn of events. The girl felt uneasy about this outcome of events and, looking at the sky with disdain, she wondered if she might be missing something. Already at night, the Empress spoke to Daniel, saying that it was already late and asking if it was time for him to sleep. But the boy apologized to his mother and said that he slept very well when his brother Algernon read books to him. The prince asked his mother if they could bring Algernon back. He felt sorry for him and he was probably lonely too. He said that it was sad to live alone in that remote village, but then his mother asked in horror how he knew this, and the boy closed his mouth. Grabbing his hands, she said that the child had definitely been sent to a place he didn't know and asked if he had seen him. Shouting, she said that she had ordered him not to leave the palace without her permission. The frightened boy, trying to hold back his tears, admitted that Raven had sent him to him. Last summer, when he told Raven he wanted to see his brother, he used magic to send him there. He did see his brother, but it was only for a short time and nothing happened. She let go of her son's hands. She sighed and thought that given that His Majesty had said nothing significant had probably happened. But if he mistakenly decides that Daniel is interested in the exiled crown prince, nothing good will come of it. She told Daniel never to see Algernon again from that moment on and asked if he understood. The boy smiled and told his mother that he understood her and would consider that he had never met his brother. It was a dangerous situation. She needed to somehow protect her child, but this damn mage, he must understand how dangerous it was. She should not have indulged so easily in children's whims, and firmly said that she had to give him a warning. When she met the magician, she said that he should understand how dangerous it was, and Raven realized that nothing could escape the eyes of Her Majesty. He said that Raven obeys any orders from members of the imperial family and grinned and asked to give him any order. The Empress frowned and said that she had heard that he had allowed Daniel to meet that child and must know how dangerous it was. It was not for nothing that His Majesty isolated this child and said that he did not want to anger the Emperor. Raven told the woman that it was deliberate and asked if she had any orders, but she had a question. She asked what prophecy His Majesty had received that led to the isolation of that child. But Raven said he couldn't reveal that. Prophecies are promises made by those who made the contract. In that case, the Empress asked whether this meant that the prophecy could only be heard by those it concerned. As if to confirm the Empress's guess, Raven, smiling, asked what exactly interested Her Majesty. The woman then explained that she was worried that her child, Daniel, might be harmed. And Raven understood her feelings perfectly well. It was not difficult, of course, but every prophecy had its price. The woman asked what she wanted, gold, jewelry, or money, but the magician raised his finger and said that his word alone would be enough. The contract will be concluded, however. She will only find out the price after it is executed. The Empress tensed, frowning as she said that was interesting, asking if he was trying to hide the terms of the deal. What kind of absurdity was this? But Raven assured her that he was only telling the truth and there was no need to worry. He said that her prophecy was like an unripe fruit. This offended the Empress, and she asked if he could really be trusted. Clenching her fists, she thought it was sad, but at the moment it was the only way to protect her son. The Empress offered Raven to make a deal and asked him to make her prophecy about Daniel. "As you wish," said the magician, snapping his fingers, and the next moment he began to read the spell, and golden magic enveloped him. He presented the prophecy to Her Majesty the Empress in the form of a golden apple, bringing it to her mouth. The woman bit into the apple Raven had created, and in an instant her body was enveloped in exactly the same magic that had enveloped him earlier. Words flashed over the Empress's head, illuminating the night with light, and the voice commanded her to find a bride for Daniel. The Science and Music Festival was approaching, and Johann told the children that it was a chance to show off the knowledge and skills they had accumulated. It all sounded funny, just because it was a spring festival, and the assistant said that was the whole point. Saying that the rest would be explained to them, the Lord Assistant let them into the room, where the man joyfully greeted the village's talents. He spoke enthusiastically about how the Science Festival celebrates the achievements of research conducted over the winter. The Music Festival celebrates the beginning of the year last night. He completed a new piece for the festival. Invitations have been sent out throughout the empire. So many distinguished people will be present at the celebration. As the Lord said, he wanted to ask them both something, what they thought about participating in the science festival. Lucy, taken aback, asked the man if he meant to give a presentation, and the assistant said they had nothing to fear. He asked the guys to relax and not feel obligated, and to think of it as a good experience for themselves. Modestly and reluctantly, Lucette agreed with Johann and said that she would discuss it with Levan. Coming out of the office, she clutched her head and said that she couldn't even imagine performing, and asked what she should do. Leo reminded her that they had been told not to feel burdened, but that was easier said than done. Lev wanted to somehow cheer up his friend, but then she herself, smiling, asked him not to worry, saying that he was not obliged to participate. Lucy replied that he was self-taught and didn't like being the center of attention, but Lev said that it would be hard for her. Lucy said that everything was fine and that she would ask the teacher for help, and Lev thanked her and said that he would help as much as he could. Looking at his reflection, Levan thought that this festival was much larger than he expected and hoped that nothing would happen. Looking at the reflection of his blood-red eyes, he again reminded himself that he couldn't leave here yet. At the same time, the Empress offered her husband a candidate for Daniel's wife, asking if the child was not yet at least 15. His wife asked him if he had heard about the epidemic that had been raging throughout the empire lately, and of course he had. He said that the Duchy of Peter suffered greatly at that time, and the woman said that because of this many children lost their lives. She wanted to find him a match before it was too late, and the Emperor thought about this proposal. Reading the document, the Emperor read out the names written by his wife and asked Diana if it was a coincidence that all the families here were from the West, and the woman frowned, pursing her lips, realizing that he had guessed that she had selected only those families that were loyal to the imperial family. Bowing, she asked His Majesty to consider their candidacies and share his thoughts with her. The next moment, a chuckle swept through the hall. Diana asked what had happened, but the Emperor only replied that he had found something interesting. After some time, everything in Levan's house was again illuminated by purple light, and he received a wound on his arm. Raven told His Highness that he should be used to this by now, offering to see what was on his mind today. The lion looked at him with displeasure, and the magician laughed and asked what was wrong, because he seemed agitated to him. Having checked the prince's thoughts, he put the ball away and said that, unfortunately, there seemed to be nothing remarkable in them, and was about to take his leave. But then Levan asked Raven to wait and said that he had a question for him, and the magician asked again, intrigued and grinning. He said that in a few days there would be an event at the Lord's castle and asked if there would be anyone there who would reveal his identity. The magician said thoughtfully that recently many people had been turning to him, telling him that his prophecies were very valuable. He said that prophecies originally imply reading the future, which is prohibited. Therefore, the price must be significant in order to be suitable. However, weight is a relative concept. So he, stretching out his hand with long claws, said that he would take from him what he valued most. What he values most flashed through Levan's head, and he froze in horror, realizing that it was Lucy. Extending his hand, he grinned and asked if His Highness was ready, and the boy lowered his head, wondering what he should do. He couldn't trade Lucy, but the information was also important to him, when suddenly Raven interrupted the chaos in his head with a few words. Putting his finger to his mouth, he said in a creepy manner and smiling that there might be one person there who might recognize him. The young man, not understanding what was happening, reminded Raven that he had not yet agreed to this price, but Raven said that it was just a guess. Lev asked if he was doing him a favor, but Raven suggested calling it an investment and wished them a pleasant time as he left. Left alone in the dark, the guy, unable to move from the spot from shock, asked what he meant by investment. Lucy had been looking very tired lately, which Leo pointed out to her, and she replied that her teacher was full of enthusiasm about the wonderful opportunity to perform. Lucetta admitted that she really wanted to get a good night's sleep as soon as the science festival was over, and Lev supported his friend. Calming down and stopping crying, Lucy asked Lev if he would come to the science festival, even though he wouldn't be performing. Levan, inwardly frightened and outwardly surprised, asked why she was asking, thinking that he should go after all. Lucy reassured the boy by saying that the adults said that he should decide for himself and that they really wouldn't force him to come. But then she bent her body lower and, looking straight into the guy's face, asked if he was hesitating because of his eyes. Lev shuddered. And she said she thought maybe he was worried about what others would think because they had had trouble with them in the past. But the boy assured Lucy that this was not so and asked if she remembered what she had told him, that it was all just superstition. Agreeing, Lucy ruffled the boy's bangs and told him to never forget what she told him. Smiling at Leo, she said that he had the most beautiful eyes in the world, and the boy's cheeks blushed with embarrassment and a barely noticeable blush. Taking Lucy's hand, he said that he would go to the science festival, and she asked in surprise if he was sure. And Levon, putting her hand on his cheek, said that everything would be fine if he was with her, and the science festival sounded fun. And indeed, he had no reason to be afraid. It was more important for him to be with Lucy, and besides, whatever got in his way, he would deal with it. In the castle of Chamel, the girl asked her mother what she should do and why she had to go through this. The little girl raised her head from the pillow and plaintively asked why she was a candidate for the prince's wife. All this time she had lived peacefully. While calming the baby, the woman told her not to worry too much, but the girl, clinging to her mother, said that she was scared. Raising her head, she told her mother that she did not want to be empress and asked to be excluded from the candidates for crown princess. The woman told Agnes that she understood her feelings and asked, "But how could one refuse the imperial decree?" The girl began to cry. Pressing herself against her mother's chest, she asked whether she would refuse the decree or die, or whether she would fall into disfavor with His Majesty and die. Wasn't that the same thing? All those who had even the slightest conflict with His Majesty met a similar fate. They either died or disappeared. The mother asked her daughter not to say such things, saying that there was still time, so she suggested thinking of a way out. Suddenly it dawned on her, and she told her daughter that she would do everything possible to resolve the issue with the imperial palace. The tears continued to flow, but the girl asked hopefully if she would have to go to the palace, and the woman said that she would not. She asked me to just trust her and calm down, asking what she thought so that I could forget about my worries and go out for a walk. The woman said she had just received a letter about a small event on the outskirts. Agnes was surprised. Wiping away tears, she asked how the candidate for crown princess should go. On the contrary, she should refrain from going out in public. But the mother, smiling, told her daughter that she could disguise herself so that no one would even think it was her, and the girl asked if she could really handle it. Mom said that her daughter could certainly look great in any outfit, and she could see that she was delighted and was sure that she would have a wonderful time. At this time, Chelsea received a letter with a ridiculous demand in which people wrote asking her to send their daughter to them. The woman was very confused by the phrase that flashed there, "the last time," as if there were more letters, but in fact, she was receiving the first one. It was Maniac County. They always suspected that she, a simple maid, had seduced her husband. Disappointed, her husband left the county with her, however. These brats could not accept this and took her husband's life. Clenching the letter, she said through her teeth that not only had they killed her husband, but now they were also taking care of her daughter. When Lucetta came into the house and told her mother that she was leaving, Chelsea stood up in fear and asked what happened and where she was going. The girl said that she was going to Redante Castle. The science festival was starting soon, and she wanted to finish working on the material for her presentation. Mom asked me if she had been working hard lately, and Lucy wearily admitted that it was not easy, but there was not much time left. The woman hugged the little girl tightly and joyfully said encouragingly that she believed her daughter would do well. As she was seeing her off, she reminded Lucy not to do anything to strangers and told her to return on time and be careful in the carriage. Now Chelsea saw how much her daughter had grown up, and she too had finally managed to settle down. She needed to forget about everything that happened before she came here. No, she needed to erase it, as if it never happened. Thinking, Chelsea mentally promised her daughter, Lucy, that she would protect her no matter what happened. Sitting on the throne, the emperor wondered if he really looked like a slacker and why he should care about an event in a remote village. As he read the text, the man realized that if the festival was taking place in the village of Kazan, then this was the place where Algernon was located. Then he turned to the servant and ordered that someone be sent to Baron Redante, informing him that there would be a boy with red eyes there. He thought it was a great opportunity to get rid of this bone in his throat and, grinning, said, "Deal with it." While riding in the carriage, Agnes asked her father if he was sure that everything was okay and that no one would recognize her, and that she would be punished if her identity was revealed. The father told his daughter not to worry about it, saying that this place had nothing to do with the imperial palace. Besides, now anyone who sees her will consider her a layered youth. Agnes had her hair hidden and was wearing red lenses. He asked me if she was sure she didn't want to go back since she was still uneasy, but she replied that she thought it was because of the unfamiliar image. The man hugged his daughter and said, "It's okay. She'll gradually get used to it, especially her mother's suggestion, so there's even less reason to worry." He told her to think about the evening concert, for he had heard that the lord of that village was a famous musician. He thought that his speech would calm her heart. These words touched Agnes, and her father said that now she looked better. After that, he suggested spending this wonderful day together, hoping that many good things would happen today. By then, Lucette had already finished her presentation on how herbs' effectiveness changed with their ripeness. When it was finally all over, the girl left the building with relief, happy and almost crying because of her nerves. Suddenly, Levon called Lucy and said that her performance was wonderful and she was amazing. The girl was glad that he liked it. Running up, she happily said that she was worried that it seemed raw, but Levon assured her that her performance was perfect. Lev enthusiastically said that she had chosen an excellent topic, and the research was impeccable, and in addition, she had organized everything amazingly well. And it was also so interesting to see, to start, but pharmacology is systematic. Lucy thanked Lev. Thanks to him, she felt relief. Levon said it was nonsense, and it was all thanks to her hard work. Anyone could see how much effort she put into that performance. Lucy was glad that he noticed me, and by that time, only the music festival remained. They still had a little time left before the evening. Lev said that there was actually one guest speaker that interested him, and asked if she would like to go with him. Lucy thought it was a good idea and volunteered to go, but during the lecture itself she realized it was magical engineering. The girl did not accept a word, and looking at Lev, she remembered that he still did not have a teacher, thinking that this was a valuable opportunity. She was pleased to see him working and realized that she had used too much energy during her performance. She whispered to Lev that she would go for a walk because she was feeling stuffy, and having agreed to contact each other through the pendant, they decided to meet later. Leaving the hall, Lucy breathed a sigh of relief now she felt more cheerful and thought that she should have gone out for a walk earlier. Looking around, she realized that scientific conferences were taking place here and there, and yet the Lord had told them that there was a shortage of talent in Redent. Suddenly she heard the sounds of music coming from a nearby building, which interested her. Daring to look inside, Lucette discovered a concert hall, and inside was Johann, who asked Lucy if the performance had gone well. He said he heard about it from her teacher, and he understood that the audience liked it too. Coming closer, Lucy happily said that it was all thanks to her teacher and asked the assistant what he was doing here. Johann excitedly announced that they had been preparing for a musical evening, and since the science festival was coming to an end, they would begin soon. He said that she could look forward to it, saying that the Lord's performance was top-notch. Lucy couldn't wait for it. When saying goodbye, Johann said that he would go and finish his preparations, and Lucette wished the gentleman good luck. Suddenly, she heard the Lord heartily welcoming Duchess Schimmel to Redanta and turned around with interest. It was the first woman in the history of the empire, Schimmel, the head of the north, governing the richest territory, and also the main character of the cruel history of the Vladen Empire, and then she noticed a member of the Agnes Schimmel family. Hugging his daughter, the Count told the Baron what he thought, told him that it was an informal visit, and asked him not to make a fuss, but rather to show him the place of rest. The Lord apologized and asked the guests to follow him, and Lucy, hiding behind a column, thought in horror why the Schimmel family was here. Of course, Lucette thought, the family could have prospered after the end of the original story, but for some reason she couldn't shake off the ominous feeling. The girl was sitting in the bushes of the garden, hiding her head in her knees and collecting her thoughts, when suddenly a man's voice called out to her. In front of her, with her head raised, 100 ravens were telling the lady that it might be dangerous to sit alone in a remote place. The girl stood up and said that she just needed to be alone to think, saying that she would be right back. Smiling at the stranger, she asked if it wasn't dangerous for him too, being here alone. Raven smiled softly and told the girl that everything was fine, and he was comfortable being alone, but he didn't like to run into people. Looking at his face, Lucy noticed his red eyes and thought that he had probably been through a lot. Lucy, understanding the hint, happily said that it was all superstition and that her friend also had red eyes, but he was a very good person. Saying that they should contact soon, the girl took a pendant out of her bag, and Raven asked if she had come with this friend today. In response, she asked if he was alone, and the magician replied that he was, but he was only here to observe people. Lucy asked again if she had heard correctly, and Raven, turning his head slightly, asked if there was anything more interesting than watching people. The girl asked what he meant by watching people, and the magician asked her to just think about it, to imagine it, asking if it was fun. There is not a single person in the world who does not want anything. People are designed to always have at least one thing they want. To eat well, to be happy, to have strength, to feel safe. Sometimes such a desire destroys him. It was so delightful to see how desires devoured people. No matter how many times he watched, he never got tired of it, the magician exclaimed. Lucetta was frightened by such bold reasoning about people's desires and shuddered in horror, backing away. She remembered that this man was very strange, and as she said goodbye, she wished him a pleasant observation of people, saying that it was time for her to go. Turning around abruptly, she rushed to run away from the strange man, wanting him to enjoy the rest of the holiday. But then the magician asked her to stop, and Lucy froze in horror, turning her head, expecting the worst outcome and thinking about an escape. But then Raven came up from behind and said that since she had shared her story with him, he would also tell her something. He told her to pay attention to the people looking around because something interesting was about to happen. For some time, Lucy stood and could not move from fear, but then she pressed her hands to her chest and shouted not to come near her. But the next moment, when she turned around, she saw no one next to her. Asking herself who that person was, the girl decided to leave quickly, and the magician sitting on the tree grinned. The Lord thanked everyone for attending the event and announced that he would perform Spring in Ridanta and sat down at the piano. People said that the Baron's performance was truly flawless, and they admired his skills, which had not disappeared, and the beautiful melody. Lucetta stood and listened to the speech, but she herself was still uneasy about what had happened to her earlier in the garden. Suddenly she overheard a conversation. Her father asked if she liked the performance, and the girl replied that it was a great idea to come. The Duke smiled and said that he was glad that her spirits had risen and that she was feeling better, finally voicing her name, Agnes. Hearing this, Lucetta realized that the name belonging to this girl was the name of the main character of the original story. Turning away from her family so as not to embarrass them with her gaze, Lucette thought that she had not seen anything, so as not to get involved in anything. Her gaze moved to the Baron, who was playing the piano, when suddenly the man sitting next to her looked at her with a keen gaze. Lucy looked away again, embarrassed that they had met eyes, but suddenly froze. Stopping with her mouth slightly open, she looked in horror at the man with whom she had met eyes and wondered why he was looking at the audience. Immediately, thoughts of a strange man flashed through her mind, and she wondered in horror if this could be what he had told her about. She told herself to calm down, told herself that he was just looking and there was no need to panic, but her heart was pounding wildly. Pressing her hand to her chest, she thought, if that man really was a killer, then his target must be here, not the Lord, because he would have been removed long ago. There couldn't be an assistant either. His status was too low to hold a grudge against him. Franz was too strong to resist. And then it dawned on Lucy that his target was someone high enough in position to be a target for assassination. But the target was weak enough to not be able to resist, and she turned her head towards Agnes. The target, who was here and arranging her personality, was definitely her. At that moment, 2 glances were directed at the girl. The killer, seeing that the target was unprotected, suddenly stood up from his seat and put his hand in his bosom. Lucetta noticed this, and her eyes widened. The man, with a dagger in his hand, as expected, quickly rushed towards the girl, shouting for the other one not to interfere and to get out of the way. At this time, Lucy ran towards Agnes, screaming for her to dodge, that it was dangerous, and the girl only looked in horror at the killer running towards her. At this time, Levon tried to contact Lucy via pendant, asking where she was now and apologizing for the fact that the conference ended late. He thought sadly, why does this always happen to him? When he returned to reality, it was already very late. Suddenly he heard the voices of adults who were worriedly asking if this child was dead, what was going on during the festival. They didn't understand how something like this could happen in Vedanta and hoped that the girl with red hair was okay. This description seemed to echo in Lev's head. The next moment he asked to be let through and moved forward, calling Lucy and asking where she was, but suddenly froze, seeing two girls sitting on the floor. The little girl with red eyes asked, hugging Lucy, what she should do and in horror asked to call a doctor. Seeing his girlfriend unconscious, Levin almost went crazy, feelings of rage, anger, mixed with other happy emotions. Agnes screamed in horror that she had to be taken away immediately. But then Levin, taking Lucy for himself, angrily told her to move away and not touch her. The little girl, frightened by the whole situation and the way Levin looked, cried and trembled, stuttering that she was sorry. But then Lucetta touched Levin's cheek with her hand and told him to calm down, saying that this child had done nothing wrong. Smiling, she told Lev that she was fine and asked him not to be so cruel to her. This touched the young man, and he apologized. Holding her hand in his, he admitted that he was very scared and worried that she might be hurt, and Lucy could tell that he was in great shock. She apologized to her friend for making him worry about her when her father ran up to the little girl. The Duke covered his daughter's shoulders with a cape and, saying that it was too noisy here, suggested that he go somewhere else before things got worse. Suddenly, the prince called out to the man in a disrespectful tone and said angrily that it was a dangerous situation in which a man could die. He was sure that he had something to say before leaving, but the already departing Duke suddenly froze, looking at the young man in surprise. Bowing, he apologized and, saying that the situation was urgent, asked for understanding, saying that he would thank them properly next time. The pale Lucetta called out to the lion and, smiling as if through pain, said that he was fine, and first they needed to sort out the situation. Leo asked Lucy why he was always late. He always had the feeling that he wouldn't be able to protect her in critical moments. Lucy asked Leo what he was talking about, because it was an accident. No one could have expected something like this to happen. Leo told Lucy that she always showed up when he needed help the most, but he couldn't protect her. He had to look after her. Lucy, exhausted, clinging to Lev's chest, said that she was calmed simply by the fact that he was here. She would have been very scared alone. But she was glad he was there and asked if she could sleep a little. Lev asked what she meant. But the girl's eyes closed. Looking at her face, he thought, since when did Lucy become so pale? And shouting, asked her to wake up. Removing his hand from her waist, he saw blood on his hand. Being horrified, he denied what was happening and, screaming, asked Lucy to open her eyes. The Duke wanted to talk to the Lord about the incident, but the Baron replied that everything was fine and it was not something he needed to apologize for. And yet, who would have thought that something like this could happen at this event? He wanted to do everything possible to reveal the truth. Turning excitedly to the Duke, he asked him to give them a little more time to investigate. But then, the man, lowering his head, said that there was no need for this, and in a commanding tone, asked Baron Farrell not to delve into this matter. The Lord asked him, taken aback, what he meant, and the Duke sadly reminded him that it was an unofficial visit. He thought that candidates for Crown Princess were officially forbidden to go out in public, and it was more important for him to protect Agnes. He hoped that there would be no noise around this matter, and raising his head, asked the Baron to behave quietly. Bowing, Farrell said he understood and said that if Sir thought so, they would not investigate it further. The Duke thanked the Lord for his understanding, and turning his gaze to Lucy, said that he had one question, asking who this girl was. Asking if he was talking about Lucy, the Baron said that she was a child under the patronage of their estate. The Duke thought about how in such a critical situation she had chosen to save Agnes, and said that they should look after her. He asked her not to worry about what had been said earlier, and asked if he could send him a letter when the girl woke up, explaining that she was their savior, and he of course wanted to repay her, and leaving the care of her to him, he went out. Left with the girl breathing heavily from pain, the Baron thoughtfully said that it was quite troublesome. He turned his head away, looked sideways at Lucy, and said that they had to resolve this incident for the sake of the residents, but they could not disobey the order of the duchy. There was a knock at the door, and Levin, telling the Lord that it was him, asked him to come in, which the man allowed him to do, and Lev entered with trepidation. He reported that the Duke had just passed by and asked what had happened to the criminal, but the Lord said that there would be no further investigation. Stunned, he told the Sir that Lucy had almost died and, angry at the situation, asked if he was now saying that the investigation would be stopped. The Baron raised his hand in front of him, worried, asking Levon to calm down. He insisted that Lucy was safe, since the doctor said the wound was not deep. Obviously, the Duke had his reasons, and Levon, clenching his fists, said through his teeth that she had risked her life to save her, and they still hadn't found anything. Levin sighed heavily and bowed, asking if he would mind leaving him with Lucy for a while. The Lord apologized to Levon that he could not help anymore and asked him to take care of Lucy properly and left. Although he didn't know the details, he understood that all he cared about was his daughter's safety. He understood that Agnes's parents were the Chamel family, who were very protective even in the palace, as there were many rumors about. Placing his hand on his forehead, he sighed and said that he was probably doing this to protect his daughter, but he couldn't accept it. He was thinking about how he needed to somehow find the criminal, when suddenly Lucy woke up, opened her eyes and called Leo. He jumped up from his seat in shock and excitedly asked when she woke up and if she was okay, and Lucy happily replied that she had just woken up. She asked how long he had been sitting there and apologized, thinking that he had been very scared then. Levon was holding back tears. He asked what she was talking about because she had nothing to apologize for. He was the one who couldn't do anything when she was wounded. But the girl happily responded, asking what he meant by saying that he couldn't do anything, since she had already told him that it was an accident. She also told him that the brooch he was going to give her broke during the incident and apologized, but Lev said that everything was fine. Saying that he would take care of her, he took the brooch and said that he had even worse news than this. He said that they wouldn't be able to find the criminal because the investigation had been stopped, but thanks to her, the girl was okay. Lucy smiled at Leo and said that if that was the case, then she was glad because the main thing was that she was saved. Leo asked with displeasure if she was serious. Lucy explained that she could now rest peacefully and felt a great sense of relief and asked to stay with her a little longer. After these words, the girl fell asleep again, and Levon, squeezing the pendant in his hand, said that if she was okay, then he could let it go for now. But he will not allow something like this to happen again, and will not allow any mistakes or errors in this. If what is needed to protect her is great power, then he will willingly return to this role and restore justice, fix everything, and protect her. The mission failed, and the mercenary exclaimed and told His Majesty that there were some circumstances, and there was another mercenary. But the Emperor was not going to listen to all this, and with one swing of his sword, ordering him to remain silent, he cut off his head. Rolling his eyes, he asked if the prophecy hadn't said that the more they tried to kill him, the stronger he would become. He pierced the sky with his cold blue eyes and grinned and said that everything was exactly as the prophecy predicted. Once home, Lucy's mother asked her how she was feeling, and the girl replied that she felt much better than yesterday. She said the wound was not deep at first, but then Chelsea pinched her daughter's cheek and said it almost broke her heart. Chelsea told her not to relax just because she felt better, and told her not to even think about going outside. She said excitedly that she was very scared by the thought that something terrible could happen to her, and asked Lucy not to do it again. After that incident, Lucetta sits at home, following the advice to rest, observing bed rest as ordered by her mother. The girl felt uncomfortable because she had made everyone very worried about this incident. Crying, she apologized to her mother and said that she wouldn't do it again. Chelsea held her daughter and said in fear that she would spill the soup. After eating the soup, Lucy asked if there was any news from Leo, and the woman replied that she had not heard anything from him after he brought her. Lucy worriedly asked if she thought he was angry that she had gotten hurt by acting as she pleased, but Chelsea, calming the girl and stroking her head, said that this was not like him, making the assumption that he was busy, asked not to worry. It was the first time they had been apart for so long, but her mother said she could use this chance to learn independence. With disappointment, Lucette wondered if he might be disappointed that she had acted thoughtlessly, or if he might be angry. Suddenly, Lucy heard a knock on the door, and shouting to her mother that it could be Leo, she ran straight from the second floor to the door. However, Johann greeted her at the door and asked how she was feeling, and judging by her voice, he assumed that she was much better. Laughing nervously, the girl said she was fine and asked the assistant what had brought him there. As it turned out, the point was that Duke Chimel wanted to express his gratitude to her. The assistant told Lucetta that when he heard that she had been hurt, he insisted that he make amends. And he said that it was just a token of gratitude, so there was no need to feel obligated, hoping that she would happily accept it. He and his mother exchanged glances when Johann leaned over and asked if he could bring the presents into the house. But Lucy smiled and refused and asked the assistant to send the gifts back. Then he asked in surprise the reason for the refusal, and the girl sweetly replied that anyone in such a situation would have done the same. She simply did what anyone else would do in her place. Seeking confirmation of her words, she asked her mother if she was telling the truth, and such a revelation greatly surprised the assistant. Agreeing with her daughter, Chelsea told Johann that she respected Lucy's wishes and asked him to convey her daughter's decision to the Duke. The man asked if they were sure, trying to insist, but Chelsea interrupted saying they were sure, asking him to take care of it. Reluctantly, he said that he realized there was no choice, and said that he would see to it that her decision was conveyed to the Duke. Lucy thanked Johann, and he, climbing into the carriage, said that it was his duty, wishing to see them after her complete recovery, and left. After that, Lucy breathed a sigh of relief and thought that she was glad that she was able to send him back. The gift of gratitude was too much, and it felt like they wanted to buy their silence. Suddenly, Chelsea praised Lucy. She said that she couldn't believe how her dear daughter had grown up. Lucetta happily agreed with her and reminded her that she always said that they should give as much as they receive. Then Lucy decided not to worry about other things anymore, because everything she wanted to protect was right in front of her. That same evening, the lady learned that the girl had refused her gift, and the Duke confirmed this. "I heard that she is very modest and pious, a truly rare child of purity for her time." "That's exactly it," said the Duchess, and asked with interest what kind of child had managed to completely ruin her plans. The Duke apologized and asked Madame in surprise what she had just said, not having heard. But then the woman asked Orleans if Lion could send a letter to Redante, saying that she would personally like to meet with the savior, her daughter. The next day, Chelsea told her daughter to stop, because they didn't have many customers and she could go and relax without worrying. But Lucy happily told her mother that she was really healthy already, her wound had completely healed, and she felt great. Thinking about this, Chelsea asked when she was going to meet Levin, and Lucy asked sheepishly why she suddenly started talking about him. Mom reminded me that she wanted to meet him and continued asking about him even when she couldn't get up. Smiling at her daughter, she told her to go ahead and not to worry about her mother, because she missed him too. The girl's cheeks turned red and she looked away shyly, agreeing with her mother. She said she would quickly check on him, and Chelsea asked her daughter not to stay out too late, and Lucy promised to be back soon. Laughing at the situation, the woman said that the girl ran away without even saying goodbye to her. But suddenly she thought her daughter suffered and she had to silently let it go, but she also knew that it was better not to mess with nobles. Then suddenly the door opened and Chelsea sweetly asked Lucy if she had forgotten anything, but something was wrong. Suddenly a tall, masculine figure appeared in the passageway and Chelsea's face frowned. "Long time no see, Miss Chelsea," said the uninvited red-haired guest as he walked inside and grinned, asking how she was doing. She asked Friedrich how he ended up there, and he replied that he had sent a letter, but never saw a reply. The girl said that they had nothing to talk about. The man grinned and noted that she had become bolder in her expressions. Chelsea sullenly told him to say what was needed, and the men, folding their arms across their chest, proudly asked where his niece was. His niece, smiling, asked her not to rush and wondered why he needed her daughter. The man, spreading his hands and smiling, asked her not to be angry. After all, she was his brother's daughter. He asked her to tell him honestly whether it wasn't easy to live here. A maid can't live in a nice house and run a shop that's being robbed in a house with a leaky roof, he said, leaning closer. He asked if barely making ends meet was a good choice, and Chelsea said that if he came here to talk nonsense, he should get lost. She said angrily that she knew he was not the type of person to give anything for free and that he would not lay a finger on her daughter. The man mocked her sensitivity and asked her sarcastically if this was how she said goodbye to someone who was simply worried. Before leaving, he said that he would leave for today, but next time he wanted at all costs to see the face of his niece. As soon as the door slammed shut, Chelsea fell to her knees from the strain of the conversation, horrified to realize that the Menelicks were looking for Lucy. Frowning, she told herself that she had to hide Lucy no matter what, and would never let them get her. At this time, Lucy had already approached Leo's house. She had already knocked more than 10 times, but there was no answer, and she thought that he was not at home. She wondered sadly if it was because he didn't want to see her. After all, he had never visited her. A tear was already forming in the corner of her eye when she called out to Lev for the last time, saying that it was she who asked him to open the door. There was no answer, and wondering whether he wanted it or not, the girl decided to go in, but looking around inside, she realized that he was not on the first floor. Still, she expected this, but since Lev was not anywhere in the other rooms, there was only one place left, the second floor of the house. However, the girl knew that Leo didn't like it when he went up there, but already taking a step up, she said that he needed to go down earlier. She didn't even have time to climb one step when she suddenly heard some rustling to the side, and turning sharply, asked Lev if he was there. But the next moment, a boy flew into her, hugging her around the waist, burying his head in her chest, and calling her brother. Suddenly the boy raised his head and, realizing that he was mistaken, tearfully asked where his brother was, but Lucy thought that he was like that. Lucy squatted down in front of the boy and propped her head up with her hand and asked if he meant Leo by brother, and the boy confirmed this. Luchette looked at him in surprise, thinking that she didn't even know that Lev had a younger brother, even though they didn't look alike. When asked if she knew where Lucy's brother was, she replied that she herself was not sure where he was, and that she was also waiting for him. Getting up, she suggested waiting, since he would most likely return, and asked if he wanted to go with her. She said that she was curious about something, and Daniel, as if reading between the stars, asked if she wanted to ask about him. Lucy thought that Lev didn't often talk about himself even when they were together. He usually just listened, and who would have thought that he had a brother? Lucy asked him if he liked Leo very much. After all, he had come such a long way just to see him. The boy thoughtfully said that Leo was very kind. He used to read books to him until he fell asleep, and that's why those books remained his favorites. And to be honest, I came to see my brother today precisely because I haven't been able to sleep normally lately. Lucette thought that maybe this little guy really liked Lev, but the fact that he couldn't sleep normally was sad. Suddenly an idea came to her, and she, taking a candy out of her pocket, said that she could offer him this. Daniel asked what it was. Lucy happily explained that it was a herbal candy that would help him sleep and was made from herbs with a calming effect. Looking at the candy, the boy asked if this medicine was dangerous, and the girl replied that it was absolutely safe. Smiling and melting the child's heart, she asked him to just trust her and try, guaranteeing that it would help. Having succumbed to temptation, the boy put the candy in his mouth, but almost immediately said that he did not feel sleepy at all. Lucy exhaled nervously. She enthusiastically said that this is how it should be because he had just eaten it, and told me to lie down and close my eyes. Lying down on the pillow, the boy asked, embarrassed and cautious, if she would leave if he fell asleep. And the girl assured this sweet little boy that she was not going anywhere, advising him to just fall asleep. And so, not even a couple of minutes had passed, and the boy immediately fell asleep. I thought that he was probably tired lately. She thought with affection why Lev had only hidden such a charming little brother and decided to interrogate him properly when he returned. And yet it was hard for her to be on her feet after so much time, and she thought that she probably had not fully recovered. Hugging the pillow, she decided to just close her eyes for a while until Lev returned, and at the same time, from the room on the second floor, he was muttering something. Levin finally completed a magical brooch with tracking and recording functions with which he could ensure Lucy's safety. Suddenly, the voice of the magician sounded in his ear, thoughtfully and grinning, asking Mr. Algernon if this was not too ominous. The young man, with dark circles under his eyes that betrayed his fatigue, turned around abruptly and asked Raven how long he had been watching. Smiling, Raven asked him not to be so harsh. He had just arrived after a long absence and asked if he had enjoyed the festival. Turning back to the table, he covered his eyes with his hand and said negatively that it was terrible, when suddenly he opened his eyes wide. He turned to the mage and asked if Lady Chamel was the person who could recognize him, and Raven asked if he had decided so. Raven explained that she came in disguise, and he thought that someone from the Imperial Palace ordered her to keep an eye on him. In response, Raven laughed and said that although the Schimmel family was loyal to His Majesty, he doubted that they would go that far. Most likely, her disguise was related to her status. Candidates for the crown princess are prohibited from appearing in public. Levan was surprised by this news about the crown princess, and Raven said that it was a top secret, but he thought that he could tell him. The magician reported that Her Majesty the Empress has been very busy lately looking for a bride for Prince Daniel. Lev asked what this meant, whether she intended to make Daniel the next emperor, but Raven also did not understand her motives. The situation in the palace was unstable, but if something happened to the emperor, it could be a good opportunity for him. Then Raven suggested moving on to the main topic. At that moment, Levan's heart almost froze when he remembered why the magician was coming to him. Raven kindly reminded the prince that his task was to read whether his disposition towards His Majesty had changed. He asked to give him a hand so that he could understand his thoughts. Lev looked at him in horror, thinking that at this rate his intentions would be exposed. Levin extended his hand, and Raven was about to get down to business when there was some noise outside the door, and both turned around abruptly. Pressing his hand to himself, Levan asked what this meant, and Raven, thinking, told him to go and check for himself, and the guy asked if this was possible. And the magician, grinning, said that for today's report, what he heard from him directly would be enough. He had the feeling that he only needed one look into his eyes to read his thoughts, and there was no point in reporting on someone who had been sitting in his room for a week. A week? Levin asked him again in horror, unable to believe that a week had really passed since that day, and he ran out of the room. As he went down, he worriedly wondered why time had flown by so quickly, since he had never visited Lucy during all this time. This couldn't be, he had to go to her right now, when suddenly his brother Daniel ran out to meet him joyfully. The boy said that he asked to check how he was doing here, and someone else with whom he spent time came to visit him. The guest with whom he spent time? Lev asked worriedly, and mentally asked not to say that he met with Lucy. Turning around, he saw his girlfriend falling asleep on the sofa and irritably asked his brother why he had come again. Turning to Daniel, he angrily asked if he hadn't made it clear to him not to appear here again. The boy was taken aback. At the same time, in the imperial palace, the empress discovered that her son, Daniel, was missing. The maids apologized, saying that it happened suddenly, but the woman shouted and asked what kind of excuse they were making and what they were doing. Putting a cloak on her shoulders, she ordered him to follow her, saying that they must find him quickly. She could only guess what His Majesty would say if he found out about this, so she simply could not stand aside. The Empress was wondering where Daniel had gone when she suddenly saw Raven and realized that he was involved in his disappearance. She asked Raven to come over for a minute and, telling him that Daniel was missing, asked him to help find him. His Highness Daniel disappeared from the palace. He asked in surprise, and remembering what happened at Levan's house, he understood what was going on. Realizing that Raven had an idea, Diana asked if he knew where he was going. The mage smirked and said he wasn't sure. However, he had some thoughts, and he informed Her Majesty that he did not know if he was okay. Diana tensed up. At this time, Levan demanded that his brother answer him and asked why he ignored his words. Daniel was trembling with fear. He reminded him that he had told him never to come here again, and shouted at him asking why he had ignored his warnings. Daniel sighed in pain as his brother squeezed his shoulders and asked his brother to forgive him, promising not to disobey again. He said that he hadn't been able to sleep lately, and then he remembered the time they spent together. He just hoped that meeting him would make this suffocating feeling go away, so he secretly used Raven's magic circle. He knew he wouldn't approve, but he just wanted to see him, because the palace was very lonely without him. He offered to return to the palace together, saying that they would be able to persuade their father, and that there was no need for him to be here. Levan dropped his hands from his brother's shoulders, who still didn't understand anything he told him. It is true that the emperor's intentions were unclear, and it would not have been surprising if he had lost his head even earlier. But why was he sent here, when suddenly Danielle asked her brother, maybe he doesn't want to return because of his sister? The boy couldn't believe that his brother had become attached to such a place, so he assumed that it was definitely his sister. He wanted to offer to take her with him if he was worried about her and didn't want to leave her alone. But then Levan answered sharply, turning his head away, never to mention her, and he saw nothing here. Looking at the sleeping Lucy, he thought that if rumors about her leaked into the palace, he would not be able to predict what dangers might arise. It was necessary to send him back quickly before it was too late, Lev thought, grabbing Daniel by the wrist and pulling him along. Suddenly, on the second floor, the out-of-breath Empress appeared in front of them and angrily asked what he was doing with her son. She ordered Algernon to let him go right now, and the guy only frowned and glared at her with his bloodshot eyes in response. She excitedly asked the first prince if he had invited Daniel here. Levon only put his arm around the father's shoulders. He asked to avoid misunderstandings and informed Her Majesty in advance that His Highness the Prince himself had come here. He swore that he had done nothing, and Daniel confirmed to his mother that Brother Algernon had done nothing wrong. He said that it was his personal initiative, and he came here without any ulterior motive, asking for forgiveness. By this time, the Empress had gone down to the first floor and was trying to believe that he had come of his own free will. Deciding to act, Leo said, as expected, that the prince was allowed to walk quietly outside the palace. But this is very unfair to the candidate for crown princess who is on probation. Danielle asked her brother which candidate he was talking about when Diana, in horror, asked Levon how he knew about this. But then Daniel asked his mother to explain everything, worriedly saying that this was the first time he was hearing about this. Squeezing his brother's shoulder hard, Levon said that information about the royal family is usually spread widely. It was a pity that this was kept a secret from the main participant, and he asked why she was in such a hurry to marry such a young man. The question of whether the royal family really had problems touched Diana to the quick, but she remained silent. Only after she had collected her thoughts did she say with obvious disappointment that nothing of the sort had happened and that everything in the imperial palace was as calm as ever. She reported that His Majesty was still in good health and that it was entirely her decision. However, here Danya shouted that he did not agree with this. He heard about marriage for the first time and did not understand why they made such a decision without his knowledge. Diana shouted at Daniel to shut up, saying that he had no idea how much effort she had put into protecting him. Levin said it was interesting that the crown prince was being ignored, while the imperial court was spending money without any hesitation. All in order to find him a passion, without his knowledge. Diana said that he had become too insolent and asked what he wanted to say by this. He decided to put an end to this and ordered her to stop spying on him. He would return the prince to her and they should not come here again. So he's using her child as a hostage and violating the royal family's orders, the Empress asked in shock. But Levin explained that Her Majesty must know how difficult Daniel's visit was for him and that he was doing this to protect himself. And he firmly declared that from that moment on, the prince, His Majesty, and all those close to the royal family were forbidden to come here. He told her not to dare set foot here again. He always found it strange why the emperor didn't kill him. There were plenty of opportunities, and perhaps it wasn't that he didn't want to kill him, but that he couldn't. Having released his brother, he declared that he had said everything he wanted and stated that if His Majesty were to look for him, he should call at any time. Then he would come to him with joy, but today they would see each other here for the last time, he said, deciding to definitely find out the whole truth. When everything was finally decided, Levon began to wake Lucy, asking how long she had been waiting for him. Jumping up from the sofa, Lucy asked in surprise when he arrived and apologized for falling asleep and sleeping too long. Smiling, she asked if everything was okay with his younger brother. Levon asked again in surprise. Lucy asked in surprise about the boy with the golden stripes and asked if he had met him, since he had been looking for him all this time. Turning away, Levon reluctantly said that this was his cousin. He left and probably would not return. But Lucy seemed to love him very much, and she had never heard of his family before, so she was surprised. Looking sadly at Lev, she asked if everything was okay with him. She had the feeling that they had not seen each other for a long time, although they had never been apart for so long before. She thought he was angry because she had taken a risk and gotten hurt, but when she got to his house, no one was there. And then some kid said he was related to her. They were so close, but now she realized she still didn't know much about him. With sadness and without looking Levon in the eye, she said that a strange feeling suddenly appeared in her, as if he had become a stranger. Turning in his direction and looking straight into his eyes, Lucy worriedly asked if it was true that they were still friends, and both thought so. Leo asked Lucy to give him her hand for a second and put the brooch in it, saying that he had fixed it in the meantime. He felt bad about not being able to hear her voice all this time, and explained to Lucy that he would never leave her. Throwing herself into Leo's arms, Lucy joyfully said that it meant she had worried in vain and asked if he would forgive her just this once. Blushing and somewhat embarrassed, he hugged the girl and asked her to forgive him for disturbing her. Now this brooch transmits its location and allows you to hear your surroundings when your heart rate increases. He would not repeat this mistake twice and, hugging her tighter, said that he would never lose her, that they would always be together. From that day on, everything returned to normal. Lev no longer made her wait, and they again communicated a lot like before. The quiet life was wonderful, but it seemed she had been eating too many sweets lately. If there was a problem, it was that she had become too relaxed and thought she should hold back a little. Suddenly, Lucy was called by advisor Johan and asked what she was looking at in the mirror. Lucy asked him if everything was okay, and Johan said that it had been quiet without her there, and although he was quite bored, everything was fine. Lucy apologized guiltily and asked how much time had passed, but the man asked her not to apologize because she was sick. Here he said that he had something to tell her and was glad to have met her, he said, holding out the envelope. And as it turned out, it was an invitation from the Schimmel family. Lucy reminded that she refused the gifts and asked why. But Johan thought that was why they sent him and wanted to thank her by telling her that she could take anyone with her. It seemed like it was too much, and Lucetta said she felt awkward. She had refused last time and wasn't sure her mother would approve. After thinking, Johan's assistant said that if it concerned her mother, then it seemed to him that she would not mind. Lucy was surprised. He said that he actually met her at the store when he ran there on the way, and she said that she would leave the decision up to her. Lucy incredulously told the Lord's assistant that this simply couldn't be, to which he replied that she should go and find out for herself. Now the girl's face expressed sincere misunderstanding and surprise when the assistant's words turned out to be true. The mother explained to her daughter that she was invited personally after all, and perhaps it would be better for her to show up there. Lucetta told her mother that she thought she wouldn't let her, but Chelsea said that she had good manners and could go. She asked when she was leaving, and Lucy said she would be picked up the day after tomorrow, which was good. Chelsea could help her get ready. But then Dahlia called out to her friend and asked worriedly if she was sure that this was the best option, and if she wanted to tell Lucy something. She thought she should at least explain, but then Chelsea interrupted her friend and firmly stated that this conversation was already over. She told Lucy that she had to go to the shop again and told her to ask Leo to keep her company if she needed a companion. Mom quickly left, and Dahlia ran after her, leaving Lucy standing in shock, wondering what was going on and whether she really needed to go. That same evening, Leo, paying attention to his friend's condition, asked her what had happened, saying that she was strange today. Lucy reported that, in general, her mother and Aunt Dahlia had a little argument, and she thought it was because of her that she was worried. She explained that it was about her being invited to the house of Duke Schimmel, and Lev asked in surprise if it was because of the incident at the festival. Assuming that this was the case, the girl said that they had already sent gold coins and jewelry home, but when she refused, they sent an invitation. To be honest, she felt a little uneasy and had doubts. But her mother told her to go, although her aunt also did not agree with her. Lucetta didn't understand at all why this bothered both of them so much, and was angry that everything was so complicated. They stopped investigating but still wanted to thank Lucy, but Levon knew that commoners meant nothing to aristocrats. But now, they had already shown generosity twice and even invited her. It was obvious that they had hidden intentions, but then Lucy called out to him. She repeated her request that he go with her to the Duke's house because she would feel calmer with him. Without thinking twice, Levon said that it was not difficult for him at all, and Lucy was very happy that it was not a burden for her friend. Levon put his hand on Lucy's shoulder and said that he was doing all this for her and not for anyone else, and this time he would always be by her side. The girl happily thanked him, and the guy thought that he would never allow her to be in danger. After saying goodbye to Lucy, he thought about the Duke's house. It was a loyal family that survived even during the Great Purge. Survive under the rule of an emperor who mercilessly exterminates all aristocrats who pose the slightest threat. It was clearly not just loyalty. They know what decisions need to be made to survive and maintain their position. Such a perceptive duke would hardly call Lucy just like that, but whatever he had in mind, he would not allow him to even touch her. Suddenly he heard a knock on the door. Deciding that Lucy had forgotten something at his place, the guy quickly and amiably opened the door. But suddenly Chelsea appeared before him and, apologizing for visiting at such a late hour, she said that she needed to come in for a minute. When he said that she knew he wasn't from around here and that she wanted to know more about his origins, the guy froze. Looking at Lucy's mother in amazement, he asked her what she meant by his real identity, and she replied that it was the knowledge that he was not from here. Standing on the threshold, the woman said that he had no need to pretend. She had worked for noble families for a long time, although she did not know his circumstances. Levon shuddered in horror when she said that he was hiding who he really was and living here, and asked why she was telling him this now. Chelsea explained that since he was the child of a noble family, he should at least know the family trees of the 5 noble ranks. And she asked if he knew the name of Lawrence Menelik. Lev understood that she meant the young gentleman who died of illness. Chelsea confirmed this and said that he said goodbye to life in this village, and that the blood of Menelik flows in Lucy's veins. Lawrence was the eldest son, but was born weak, so she was always by his side as a maid, and then they fell in love. They decided to leave the house as soon as Lucy was born, but the Meneliks doubted Lawrence's decision. They thought that one day he would return and aim for power from the family, so they took action before he left. And because of his weak body, he died as soon as they arrived in the village. Her husband became a victim of his own family's greed. And now these people began to lay down on her daughter, but she could not allow them to get what they wanted. Hearing this, the young man shuddered. Taking Lev's hands, Chelsea said that her strength alone would not be enough and asked him to use the strength he and his family had to protect Lucy. The woman said that he could marry her or take her as a servant and force her to carry out strange tasks. She didn't care. Lowering his head, Levon thought sadly that Lucy's mother also did not know that he was a member of the imperial family and apologized to the lady. He said he couldn't give details, but his situation was only a facade, again apologizing for not being able to help. Chelsea was devastated, but she sympathetically said that he must have his reasons too, so that left her with only one option. Levon asked what she meant, but as she said goodbye, she asked Levon not to worry. She would not tell anyone about his origin. Turning around, Chelsea smiled and asked him to stay close to Lucy and asked if she was asking too much, right? The astonished guy replied that she would not forgive something difficult, but suddenly a bad feeling appeared in his soul. But after several days, Lucy and Lev, accompanied by a knight, arrived at the castle of the Chamel family. The maid said that she would assist her in preparing for the appointed dinner and asked Miss Lucetta to follow her. She explained that her grace had ordered that the best reception be arranged for her, and Franz wished Lucy luck in her preparations. Turning his attention to Levon, he asked why he looked so gloomy lately and whether he had really interrupted their date. Looking at the knight, the young man replied that he was, on the contrary, grateful that he was accompanying them, but something was bothering him. Despite the guy, the man said that he already thought that it was because someone recognized him. Levana jerked in fear. He asked what he was talking about, and the knight explained that he knew little about him, but thought it would not be surprising if someone recognized him in such a place. Looking at the young man, he said that he already knew that he was a difficult guy, and came to this conclusion when they crossed blades. Levon believed that he had really been living in the village for too long, but then Franz asked to be allowed to ask, and asking to be told honestly, asked who he was. As he was leaving, Levon said that he shouldn't be interested in such things, but the knight said that he could tell him and he would keep his secret. In a half-turn, Leo told Franz that this was enough and that he still had a reason to stay in this village. The man exhaled with displeasure and asked in a relaxed tone after her if he really had such a big secret. After changing into her outfit, Lucy asked Miss Louise, covering herself with her hands shyly, if she thought the dress was too revealing. But the girl enthusiastically said that she thought it was perfect, and Lucy admitted that she had never worn a dress with such a low neckline before. She sheepishly asked if there was anything she should be careful about, such as etiquette, but Louise told her to relax. She said that His Grace was not the kind of person who would blame their daughter's savior for anything. However, she should be a little more careful with her ladyship. She said that gentlemen are not the type to reveal their true intentions with words. This meant that her ladyship would be joining her for dinner a little later after her meeting, but she was very interested in her. Lucy thought that if she had known that everything would turn out this way, she would have accepted the gifts. What good would it do her to win the favor of a nobleman? She felt uncomfortable with the hospitality they were showing to such an unremarkable guest. It was all wildly awkward. Then Levon entered the room and asked if Lucy had finished getting ready, saying that the dress looked great on her. Seeing Levon in such a superb outfit, without glasses, and the way he complimented her, Lucy's heart suddenly started beating wildly, but she didn't understand why. It was very strange. She saw Lev every day, but why today he looked completely different she could not understand. He looked just like a prince from a fairy tale when she noticed and said that he had taken off his glasses. Levin had no intention of doing this, but then he was told that this was the etiquette and asked if he looked strange. But the girl sharply replied that this was not the case at all, and he looked great, and she was just surprised, that's all. Charmed by her beauty, Levon said that he didn't often get the chance to see her like this, and asked if she said she liked her. And although he still feels a little awkward, but since she likes his image, he is happy, Lucy already wanted to shout about it to the whole world. She shouted for everyone to hear that her childhood friend was handsome, but when she came to her senses, she thought that if she said it out loud, there would be a lot of problems. But then Levon, holding out his hand to his friend, said that dinner would soon begin, announcing that he would accompany her to the banquet hall. Lucy's cheeks flushed even more as he got closer, and she thought how sweet it was of him to even accompany her. On her way to the banquet hall, she informed her friend that she had heard that her ladyship would be late because of an appointment, but she was very keen to attend. Leo said that there was no need to be so nervous. If any awkward situation arose, he would try to resolve it. But Lucy explained that it did not bother her. "So everything is okay?" Levon asked, smiling, and Lucy, taking out an envelope, confidently said that she had also prepared something. Already at dinner, the Duke thanked Miss Lucetta for coming and politely suggested that they make themselves comfortable. The lady sitting next to him also thanked Lucy for that day and, happy to meet her, introduced herself as Agnes Schimmel. And while Lucy was still in the abstract, after she was convinced that it was really Agnes, the girl kept looking at the guy next to her. When she apologetically asked Levin if they had met before, the guys looked at her. The father reminded his daughter that this was the boy who had been next to Lucetta, but Agnes thought she had seen him before. When Lev said that he didn't think it was possible, he explained that he had been living in Quezon for a long time, and she probably mistook him for someone else. "That's how it is," the girl asked in surprise and asked for forgiveness, saying, "He just seemed familiar," and a tense silence fell. To lighten the mood, the Duke said that there was a misunderstanding between them and, changing the subject, suggested that they begin eating. Lucetta happily agreed with him, but then looked sadly at her friend, whose face had changed, wondering if Lev was upset about what had happened. He usually didn't avoid others, but now he looked like he was on guard and it made me worry. But now they had begun to dine, and the Duke, without wasting any time, asked Lucetta why she had refused his gifts. Lucy replied that the thing was, as she had said then, she was only doing what she had to do and there was nothing special about it at all. The man said that from the very beginning he had no doubts about her sincerity. Lucy thanked him, but then started talking about the attacker. She asked them how they thought he had guessed that it was Lady Agnes he had attacked, and that he had disguised himself. Agnes herself was curious about this. Suddenly, Diana came in and praised Miss Lucetta's observation, saying that it was definitely worthy of the one who saved her daughter. Duchess Schimmel, smiling, apologized for being late and, asking them not to be distracted from their food, went to the table. She asked that they must have a lot of questions and offered to deal with each one, whether they were about what happened or something else. She was more friendly than Lucy expected, so she asked Agnes why she had disguised herself as a boy, and she would also like to know why they don't investigate the attacker's case, because if she were there, she would want to catch him. Diana smiled. She praised the questions and said that they were conducting a secret investigation. Lucy asked in surprise if it hadn't been suspended. But the woman denied this, saying that it was about her daughter, but she really found something strange during the investigation. "Something strange?" asked Lucetta with interest, and the Duchess asked Miss how she saved Agnes. Lucy asked what she meant. Diana explained that no matter how long she reasoned, it was strange that such a young girl was able to track the killer's movements. She did it right before the attack, and she, as a mother, could not exclude a single detail. Agnes listened. Still, there was a possibility that she had recognized her daughter from the very beginning and planned the attack, the Duchess reported her guess. "What?" Luchette asked in horror. God, she thought, this is complete nonsense. Does she really think that she was in collusion with a criminal? In complete shock, she looked at the Duke and Agnes, who also looked stunned and couldn't even think of what to say to this. She must understand that this is absurd, right? But then where does she get the feeling that she is behaving so meanly for a reason? When suddenly Lavon stood up in defense and told her ladyship that her words were unacceptable, Lucy simply showed courage and had nothing to do with what happened. "Who knows what really happened?" Diana replied. It was too early to judge, and she wanted them both to help with the investigation. She said this because she felt it necessary to carefully examine both of them. The children tensed, and Lavon clenched his jaw in anger. Rising from his seat, he said that this was enough and asked who would have known that the hospitality of the Chamel house would turn out to be so terrible. He put his arm around Lucy's shoulder, and suddenly the whole family and Lucetta herself instantly noticed her reddened hand. Her hand became covered in a rash, and Franz suddenly came out from behind the table, worriedly asking what was wrong with her hand, whether it was because of the food. Lucy replied worriedly that she was fine, thinking that it was a reaction to something she had eaten and was sure that she would recover with rest. But Lev, hugging Lucy's shoulder, suggested that they leave, saying that there was no longer any point in them staying here, and apologized to Duchess Chamel. He said that, given Lucy's condition, they would not be able to continue this conversation, but he was sure that she would forgive them for this rudeness. He glared at the woman, telling her that he believed they had already shown them great respect as guests. After what was said, Lev dragged his friend along with him, leaving behind Franz and Diana, who followed them with an ambiguous look. Lev treated his hand because she said that the medicines he brought with him were enough. He declined the doctor's offer. Lucy said that was enough and apologized for putting him in an awkward position by asking if he was very shocked by what happened. Anyway, she asked how long he was going to remain kneeling like that, and saying that it was okay, asked him to get up. But then Lavon said that this made him angry. There had to be a limit to their rudeness. He angrily asked how she dared to treat guests like that. Asking him to stop, Lucy excitedly informed Leo that there had been a misunderstanding, even though her ladyship had behaved rudely. And then the girl told her friend about her original plan, and he asked in shock if she had deliberately caused an allergy. Lucy happily confirmed this by saying that she had applied oak fir extract to herself before dinner, when no one was looking. She already told me that she had prepared for this trip. She had both the extract and the antidote with her, and fortunately the irritation appeared in time. "So that's what it was," Lavon said sadly, and Lucy quickly apologized, saying that she should have told him earlier. But then the guy raised his head and asked Lucy with a plaintive look why she didn't use it. The girl asked in surprise what she had not done, and Lavon said that whether it was intentional or not, the sight of her wounds was causing him incredible pain. And that time, and then, and always, because even if it was a simple decision, I really wouldn't want her to do something like that. Lucy thought that ending that discussion with the Duchess in this way was a very advantageous solution to the situation. But it all ended with her hurting the lion's feelings. But then Lavon asked if he still had 2 wishes left. Upon hearing confirmation, he said that his second wish would be for her to no longer mutilate herself. In response, Lucy apologized and said that she was the one who caused this mess, so she thought she should be the one to fix it. But she upset him so much by not discussing it with him and promising her friend that she would not do it again. Lev became embarrassed. However, Lucy said that she wouldn't count it as his second wish. It was her fault for making him worry in the first place. And showing the peace sign, the girl happily asked if they had agreed that he still had 2 wishes. Leo agreed, but asked her to promise that from now on she would turn to him for help, and Lucy promised this. Suddenly, she remembered with horror that they had left Sir Franz there, and Lavon asked in surprise if everything was okay with him there. Still, the knight accompanied them only in case something like this happened, but Franz was already being thanked for the explanation. Diana said that it was extremely useful in order to understand their guests better, and the morally exhausted knight replied that he was glad to help. She proposed to finish and asked him to thank everyone for joining her at such a late hour. Sir Franz also thanked her grace and left, but the Duke continued to glare at his wife with indignation. After dinner, meeting with the road, he told her that today she had been too aggressive and reminded her that their guests had saved Agnes. He asked if it didn't seem better to stop being suspicious of their saviors and focus on finding the criminal. Of course, at first he also had doubts about them, but now he thought that it was more important to find the real culprit. He sadly told his wife that they had to be very careful so that this did not lead to Agnes's identity being revealed. But then Diana said that she already knew who really did it, because she was the one who stopped the investigation. Orleans, horrified, asked his wife what she was talking about, and she explained that she wanted to sow rumors that people were hunting for the life of the candidate for crown princess. She was going to use this as an excuse for the imperial family that she could not put her daughter in danger. How could she? The Duke asked, screaming. Didn't she know how traumatic this memory would be for their child? Diana asked her darling not to be deceived. Agnes wanted to be excluded from the list of candidates for crown princess. So she just fulfilled her wish. Hearing this, Orleans froze in horror, unable to quickly perceive what his wife was doing. Coming to his senses, he shouted and asked how she could say such a thing, and how, in her opinion, their daughter would cope with what had happened. Agnes heard the entire conversation. Mom tried to kill her. Moving away from the room where her parents were arguing, Agnes realized in horror, and her breathing became heavier. Pressing her hands to her chest, she thought about how, according to her, it was for her own good. But how could the attempted murder help her? What should she do now? Agnes thought, stopping in the corridor, trying to calm her raging heart inside. At the same time, Lucy could not fall asleep. She was worried about that conversation with Levon and the hostile attitude of the Duchess. And why did she have so many reasons to worry, I thought, when suddenly she heard a knock on the door and asked who was there. The voice asked Lucetta if she would mind if she came in for a minute, and when she opened the door she saw Lady Agnes, who she thought was still awake. Lucy asked what brought her at such an hour, and the lady explained that it had occurred to her and she had decided to drop in to say something. Sitting on the sofa and folding her hands on her knees, the girl asked if she could spare a little time for her. Agnes said that she initially wanted to apologize, saying that she felt that her mother had behaved inappropriately during dinner. But Lucy assured her that everything was fine and that she understood her Grace's position, that she was probably extremely shocked by what had happened. And yet, her beloved and only daughter could have suffered seriously. These words acted like a trigger on Agnes. The next moment she said loudly that this was precisely why she was saying that she had even more right to be angry. After all, Mom was just trying to shift the blame onto her, but in any case, she asked to be allowed to apologize for her too. They say that this weighed on her. What was going on? Lucy thought, not paying much attention to the words. There was no need for her to take her side. But it was kind of her to come because she was worried and to thank Lady Agnes, saying that she made things easier. Understandingly, Agnes asked how her hand was, and Lucy replied that everything was fine now and she applied ointment to it. Agnes asked me with interest if she had made it herself, and the girl happily replied that she was studying medicine, which was amazing. Agnes remembered that her personal teacher said that pharmacology was dangerous, so out of fear she did not teach her anything. But Lucy said it wasn't that difficult, and she started studying it thanks to a friend. The lady asked if she was talking about Levon. When the girl from the Chamel family learned that they were best friends, she asked which house he was an illegitimate child of, and Lucette was surprised. She said that if she meant the conversation during dinner, she was mistaken, but Agnes was absolutely sure that he was lying. He is definitely a child of a noble family. Her memory is weak, but she was sure that she had already seen him somewhere. Agnes asked if she really knew nothing, and then Lucy began to think that these words might be true. Levon really did come to Quezon unexpectedly, Lucy thought, and replied that she really didn't know anything about it. Agnes stood up and said that she knew this and explained that if someone was not open with her, then she should not trust him too much. But Lucetta smiled sweetly and replied that everything was fine. She trusted Lev and was sure that he would tell her everything when the time came. True, the noblewoman asked her worriedly and said that she was his closest friend, and he was hiding something from her. Maybe so, Lucy answered, clutching the skirt of her nightgown, but even so, she was sure he had his reasons. After spending time with him, she could tell that Leo was more protective of her than he was of himself, so she was going to trust him and wait. This blind trust amazed Agnes, and she asked if it didn't disappoint her. And Lucy asked what she could do. It was hard to come to terms with, but she trusted Leo very much, and that was all she could do. Clenching her fists and then pressing her hands to her chest, Agnes asked in panic how she could trust someone to such an extent. What if someone she trusted did something that was beyond her wildest imagination? What if he suddenly hurt her? And then she would never be able to trust him again. In horror, remembering her mother, the girl asked what she would do then. Lucy was surprised, but quickly realized that she was not talking about Leo and replied that she would first ask him the reason. She might have misunderstood everything, but even if she couldn't accept his answer, she wouldn't regret the decisions she made in the past. And then she would simply find another person to put her faith in, and Agnes asked who she could trust then. And Lucy, smiling, explained that it had to be her, and not someone else. After all, she would never betray herself. Hearing these words, Agnes said that she was very strong. Wiping away her tears, she thanked and said that she had put her thoughts in order. She wasn't sure if that was enough to express her gratitude, but she could call her any time if she needed help. Opening the door herself, she looked back at Lucetta one last time and swore on her name that she would help her. As she was seeing Agnes off, Lucy said she was honored and wondered if she would ever need her help. But the next day, she still needed Lady Agnes's help at a meeting in the gazebo with Duchess Diana. The Duchess thoughtfully said that she had made cheesecake and asked if she was allergic to it, and Lucy said no. Now they could chat without worry today, she said, and asked Miss Lucetta to eat as much as she wanted. But how did she end up here? This morning, Louise came into Lucetta's room and said that her ladyship had invited her for tea. The girl was surprised. The maid confirmed this again, saying that everything had been quite chaotic yesterday, so the Duchess thought it would be nice to chat over tea. Lucy asked if there would be 3 of them, and asking if she would have time to go, reminded him that she had to leave soon. She understood that yesterday's conversation would continue, but Louise said that everything was fine. Levon and Sir Franz would not be back until noon. Lucy asked where they had gone, and the maid replied that they had gone hunting with His Grace and had most likely just arrived in the forest. Leo had already been kidnapped. She asked if she could take her home, saying that she was very flattered by the opportunity to join her Grace. The girl was thinking how she had thought it all out so well that they wouldn't even be able to escape, when Diana asked if she had cured her allergies. Lucy replied sharply that the rash was not severe, so she easily cured it. The Duchess felt relieved after her excitement. She said that when things turn out this way with her guests who have come from far away, she herself feels uncomfortable. She thanked him for another chance to talk to her, and Lucy replied that she should be the one thanking him, but it seemed that Agnes was delayed. Laughing, the woman asked why the 2 of them didn't just talk, and first she would like to apologize for what happened yesterday. In truth, she simply could not relax in view of the current situation, and, while drinking tea, she said that she was actually walking on a knife edge. Diana explained that the situation in the imperial family was not the best at the moment, and Lucy asked what had happened. She wasn't completely sure, but it was obvious that everything was different now than before. Lucy, thinking about the pressure from the imperial family, couldn't understand what was going on. The Duchess said that she would not dare to guess what the imperial family's intentions were, but she saw that something had definitely changed. She was sure that something like a big chance had happened, but Lucy thought that it sounded extremely strange. Now that Agnes and the members of the Schimmel family, who were characters in the original novel, have appeared, this world was no longer a place that existed much later than the main plot. But if Agnes had not yet met the protagonist, then the story had not yet begun. But something was missing, and Lucy, saying that this could not be, asked if there might be some other force involved. Another force? The Duchess asked, stunned, raising her head. What came to her mind? The girl answered that she was not very sure about it, but she assumed that there might be someone like a magician involved behind the scenes. The Duchess looked at her with raised eyebrows. She called her speculations stupid and reminded the girl that the Magi were exterminated by the previous emperor. Lucy, I thought that everyone says that magicians don't exist, but the magician is an important character in the novel, and if that's the case, then the plot doesn't fit. And yet, the Duchess admitted that she considered her guest to be definitely curious, since His Majesty could have spared one dog. After this, she thanked Miss Lucetta for the interesting conversation, hoping that she would enjoy the rest of her time there. Lucy said that Lady Agnes had not yet arrived, but Diana asked if she had said that Lady Agnes would join them. Lucetta was shocked by this outcome of events, because she certainly did not expect it, and the Duchess was almost glowing with happiness. When she suddenly turned to the girl and asked if she hadn't said that she had lived in Quezon all her life, Lucy beamed and confirmed it. In response to this, the Duchess thoughtfully said that she believed she was mistaken because her face looked strangely familiar. Franz had again missed his prey while hunting, and Levon told him that he had only attracted too much attention and suggested that they find another place. Franz noticed that his lordship was definitely behaving strangely. He couldn't believe that he wasn't at all keen on hunting. And Leo, guessing, explained that it was obviously the Duchess who asked him to go with them, but then they came across another deer. Lev took the rifle and knelt down, and Franz asked if he thought everything was taking too long. The boy replied that it was not time yet. They were too careful about the surroundings, but the knight said that he meant Lucette. Taking aim at the deer, Levon said he didn't understand what he was talking about, but Franz realized he was only pretending not to know. So he explained that, as he said, he would not remind her about it, but he should at least tell Lucy because she was his friend. But if he keeps her in the dark for an indefinite amount of time, she might eventually escape. A shot rang out. Eventually the deer ran away, and Franz pointed this out to Leo and asked if he saw that he was saying that he was taking too long. They were finally driving home, and Leo said that he heard she was left alone with the Duchess and asked if nothing had happened. Lucy denied it. It did drain her energy, but it was true that the visit could be considered a success, although she was still troubled by the Duchess's last words. There's no way her face looked familiar, but maybe she had crossed paths with her late father and thought she should ask her mother about it. Then Sir Franz noticed a strange glow in the direction of the village and reported in horror that there was a fire in the village. The children jumped up from their seats and looked out the window, terrified to see flames blazing in the distance. The girls screamed and asked the sir to go faster, and then, running out of the carriage, she ran to the house in horror. "It's impossible," she said, stopping on the threshold of her house and asking why her house was burning. Lucy kept thinking that this couldn't be happening, why this was happening, and she didn't understand whether it was an accident or deliberate arson. But then Lucy was called by Aunt Dahlia, who ran up to her and told her to get out of there, shouting that it was dangerous there. Turning towards her aunt, Lucetta excitedly asked what had happened, where her mother was. She had come to work today. A shuddering Dahlia said that she was unwell, so she stayed home. Lucetta froze in horror, and a cold sweat appeared on her body. Mom was still inside. Heading towards the house, she thought if the fire got any bigger, the supports would collapse. She needed to get her outside before it was too late. But then Levon grabbed her by the hand and shouted for Lucy to calm down, saying that if she went inside now, the flames would engulf her too. The girl screamed and told Lev that her mother was still inside and asked if he was offering to just watch. She couldn't do that. She pulled her hand out of Levon's grip and ran towards the house, but then a villager shouted that the house was falling and told everyone to run away. Then Leo came to Lucy's aid, pulling her by the waist and holding her hand, turning her to the side, lowering her to her knees, and covering the flame with his back. He said worriedly that this was exactly why he had told her it was dangerous there, and excitedly asked how she was, if she was hurt. The girl's eyes, looking at the burning house, filled with tears and horror, and she desperately asked Lev what she should do. She knew Chelsea wasn't her real mom, but she was able to adjust and settle into this unfamiliar world because she had her mom. One day she asked her mother what she would do if she said that she wanted to live in the capital, and this surprised her very much. Sighing, she replied that earlier her daughter had said that she wanted to stay and live here forever, but now she wanted to go to the capital. Lucy just asked to be told how she would feel, but Chelsea thought she could handle anything no matter where she was. And yet they agreed that wherever she was, she should not forget that she had a mother, and Lucetta happily agreed with this. Her tender love was undoubtedly genuine, so they spent happy days together. Tears streaming down her face, a broken Lucy told Leo that she never wanted to leave this place, that this was her home. The neighbors felt sorry for the poor child and discussed whether the flames would ever go out, but they were so strong that they would have burned down the entire house. And when it turns to ashes, it will be impossible to even understand who it belonged to. These words hurt the hearts of both. After a while, Levon brought his friend some food and asked if she really couldn't eat, reminding her that she hadn't eaten for 3 days. But Lucy replied that she couldn't. She apologized, saying that she had no appetite, and asked if he could leave some food, promising that she would eat it later. Her painful look of Leo's sadness and the words that she wanted to be alone, that she was fine, finished him off completely. Lev left the soup on the bedside table and asked to tell him when the soup got cold, and with these words he left the room. As soon as the door slammed shut, bitter tears began to flow from Lucetta's eyes and she began to sniffle, calling for her mother, unable to calm down. Levin closed the door but remained standing behind it. He was well aware that the fire was not an accident. Who knew that her plan would be so desperate? It was obvious that once she disappeared, the Menelicks would not be able to find Lucy. There was no method more effective and reliable than this. But now Lucy was suffering very much, and Leo could not understand why mothers were so heartless when remembering their own. Thinking that if they were going to disappear forever, he stopped and said that they should never have existed at all. Suddenly, he looked at the room on the second floor of the house, and it dawned on him that there was another way. Entering the room, he ordered Raven to appear, and the magician, instantly appearing before His Highness, said that they had not seen each other for a long time. Smiling, he asked if the visit to the Duke's mansion had been pleasant, but Levon, without answering, asked to be allowed to ask him something. Raven allowed this, and then Lev asked if his abilities were limited to prophecies alone. The magician was surprised. He responded with interest that they were not limited and asked what he would like, saying that she would fulfill any of his wishes. And although he will not fulfill it for nothing, seeing how much His Highness the Prince needs it, he asked him to tell him what his wish is. After hesitating and thinking it over again, Lev asked Raven to erase Chelsea's existence from the memories of the residents of Redante and Lucy.